Hey guys, tonight we're going way back, like plague years back. We're diving into what it actually meant to be pregnant in the Dark Ages, and spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. Like genuinely, if you were born with a uterus and got pregnant around, say, 1140 AD, there's a decent chance this ends badly. But that's what makes it fascinating, right? All the fear, the superstition, the strangely comforting rituals, plus the wild medical takes that would make a modern OBGYN faint into their scrubs. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know, what city are you in, and what time is it right now? Drop it in the comments. I always imagine us all in different little pockets of the world, sharing these strange late-night journeys. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins with the quiet. No fanfare, no ultrasound, no over-the-top reveal party involving blue or pink cake. Just a skipped period, a few days of odd queasiness, and the creeping suspicion that something inside you is different. You're a medieval woman, likely in your late teens or early 20s, though no one's marking birthdays exactly. You don't even tell anyone yet. Not right away. You wait to see if it passes. Maybe it's just a fever, maybe your body's off rhythm. But after another week of sore breasts and that strange tiredness, you know, you're pregnant. And that realization doesn't come with joy, not exactly. There's a flicker of something like hope, sure, maybe even pride, but mostly, it's fear, because you've seen what this can do to people. There's no concept of prenatal vitamins or hospital beds waiting for you. No sterile rooms, no trained doctors. If you're lucky, your village has a midwife who knows her herbs and has been doing this for years. If you're unlucky, well, then it's your great-aunt with shaking hands and one traumatic birth under her belt from 14 years ago. It's early spring, the air's still cold in the mornings, and you start wearing an extra layer under your dress, not because you're showing, but because you don't want anyone to guess too soon. Once people know, everything changes. Expectations, judgments, whispers, especially from the older women who start eyeing you with a mix of pity and that quiet, secret knowledge. She doesn't even know what's coming. You know that, historically, this is just the beginning of the danger. In fact, statistically, the moment a medieval woman becomes pregnant, she enters a game of survival with odds stacked mercilessly against her. Roughly 1 in 3 women die from complications of childbirth at some point in their reproductive life. It's that common, and that doesn't even include babies lost along the way, miscarriages, stillbirths, or the ones who live a day or two and then just stop. Your husband, if you have one, maybe smiles at the news. Maybe. He might also just nod and say, well, praise be, before heading out to tend the animals. This isn't his burden, not in the day-to-day. That's on you. And now your body's already starting to feel it. Your appetite shifts weirdly. Foods you once loved now make you gag. There's no pickles and peanut butter in sight. But you do find yourself craving onions for some reason. And bread. Lots of it. Problem is, it's Lent, and the local friar is giving stern sermons about gluttony and indulgence, so you eat quietly and pray louder, hoping no one notices you sneaking extra bites. Your stomach isn't swelling yet, but you can already feel a tightness below your ribs. It pulls when you bend too fast, and it makes carrying buckets harder than usual, but you can't stop working. Pregnant or not, there are fires to keep burning, laundry to scrub with cold water in heavy wooden tubs, and meals to prepare over open flames. That's your day. That's every day. There's no maternity leave. The only pause comes if you faint, and then only long enough to get back up again. Quirky little fact here. Medieval people believed that sneezing too hard, looking at an ugly animal, or even thinking impure thoughts could harm a developing baby. So naturally you find yourself constantly overthinking every sneeze and trying to avoid the neighbour's 3-legged pig. Superstition wraps itself around you like ivy, creeping into every part of life. You carry charms stitched into your belt, little trinkets of bone or beads meant to protect your womb. They don't seem to do much, but it helps your mind, and sometimes that's the only medicine available. And here's something that's hotly debated by historians. Whether or not women in this era had any accurate way to confirm pregnancy in the early stages. There's no sure test, no blood work. But midwives sometimes used wine mixed with urine, the theory being that if a woman is pregnant, the urine reacts differently, becoming cloudy or changing texture. Some versions of this story involve mixing it with crushed barley seeds and waiting to see if they sprout. Some call this ancient science, others call it very elaborate wishful thinking. You also start to hear stories, cautionary tales really, about what not to do. Don't climb ladders, don't cross running water, don't look at a full moon too long, or you might curse the child. These aren't just superstitions. In a time when medical knowledge is patchy at best, folk wisdom becomes the rulebook. And yet, even in this uncertainty, there's a strange kind of comfort. You're not alone. Other women check in on you quietly. They slip you warm broth or tell you stories about their own births, some horrifying, some beautiful. One tells you about the time her baby came in less than an hour right by the fire. Another tells you how she laboured for 2 days and nearly died, but didn't. And that's something. That's hope. At night, you lie awake, hands on your still flat stomach, listening to the howling wind outside. You think about the future, about what kind of mother you'll be, if you get the chance. And as the candle gutters out beside your bed, you whisper a little prayer. Not loud, just enough for the child, or whatever spirit might be listening to hear. You wake to the sound of someone grinding herbs in the next room. It's the village healer, Agnes, though most people call her Mother Bone. Not because she's warm and maternal. She's called that because she carries around a tiny pouch of dried animal bones that she rattles for signs like a clacky horoscope. You haven't told her you're pregnant yet, but she already knows. She always knows. She claims to smell it on people, like rosemary mixed with fear. She doesn't ask if you want help. She simply hands you a little cloth pouch filled with bitter-smelling roots and says, "Hang this near your bed, child, for strength, for the womb." You nod, not really understanding. That's kind of how this all goes. You do what you're told, even when what you're told makes no actual sense. Womb magic is a whole thing. Pregnancy, in medieval belief, is a mysterious, even mystical process, involving not just the body but the stars, the weather, and your personal virtue. Women don't just carry babies, they incubate souls, and that's no small responsibility. Agnes insists you carry a sliver of St. Cuthbert's robe tied around your wrist. It's supposed to guard against wandering womb, a genuine theory from ancient medicine that held the uterus could detach and float around inside you, causing hysteria and death. You smile politely as she talks, but part of you wonders, what if it's true? She explains that your baby's soul is still formless right now, still being moulded by God, or possibly the devil if you aren't careful. The wrong dream, the wrong scent, the wrong bite of food could twist the child's nature. Want a strong, healthy baby? Avoid sex after conception. Too late. Eat garlic sparingly, and don't stare at eclipses. Want to keep the devil out? Keep a sprig of yarrow in your undergarments. You do. It itches, but you don't take it out. There's a tea for everything, of course. Agnes boils leaves and berries down into thick syrups, pours them into stoppered flasks, and tells you when and how much to drink. Mugwort is her go-to herb, supposed to ease cramping and strengthen the womb. Pennyroyal, she warns, is a trickster, helpful in some doses, deadly in others. You don't touch it. You've heard stories of women taking too much and bleeding out within hours. Still, not everyone agrees on which herbs are safe. Midwives, healers, and physicians, those rare university-trained men in distant cities, all have different lists, and sometimes they contradict each other entirely. You don't have access to a proper doctor anyway. Physicians are for the nobility, or the wealthy merchants in the city. Their knowledge, based on Galen's ancient texts and Islamic medicine, translated through Latin, seems more like theory than practice. They believe in humours, blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile, and maintaining balance between them. Pregnancy, they say, increases the blood, which can cause overheating or madness if not corrected. Their fix: bleeding. Yes, that's right. They would cut you, draw out some blood, and consider it helpful. You don't want any part of that. Meanwhile, Agnes says the moon cycle will guide your pregnancy. The child will be born in the same phase it was conceived, she tells you, nodding at the sky. Mark it. You don't know if it's waxing or waning. You were a little busy that night, but she insists you try to remember. Quirky fact incoming. In some areas, it's believed that conceiving during a full moon produces boys, and new moons, girls. Others insist it's the position you sleep in afterward. Left side for boys, right for girls. No one seems to agree, but they all feel very confident about it. Every few days, women in the village drop by. Most have had children, some are just curious. They offer advice whether you ask for it or not. One insists you must keep a scrap of red wool tied around your ankle to prevent miscarriages. Another warns you to avoid looking at anything deformed or frightening, or the baby might take on the shape of your fear. These women also tell stories of night spirits, fairies, elves and shadow people that slip into homes and steal babies from the womb. To ward them off, you're told to keep iron scissors under your mattress and ashes by the door. You do both. You begin to notice a tension between the church's teachings and the village traditions. The priest, Father Edrig, is young and freshly ordained, eager to purify the town of its pagan habits. But even he doesn't scold Agnes too harshly. She's delivered half the village, and when his sister was pregnant last winter, he brought her dried lavender from Agnes's hut without question. Still, he preaches on Sunday about the sins of Eve, about how childbirth pain is a woman's punishment for the fall. You sit in the back pew, stomach turning from both nausea and fury as he recites Genesis. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. You're tempted to roll your eyes, but your mother catches your glance and squeezes your hand tight. Best not to be noticed. Some say that if you cry too much during pregnancy, the baby will come out full of sadness. Others say the opposite. Let it out now, or the grief will rot inside and make the child sick. So you try to cry only at night, softly, into the edge of your pillow. And here's something scholars still debate. How much of this was truly believed, and how much was just culture? A way to make sense of fear. Was womb magic a real belief system, or more of a ritual comfort in the face of powerlessness? Maybe both. Maybe that's the point. At the market, a toothless old man tries to sell you a birthstone, a smooth piece of quartz he swears was once used by a Saxon queen. He claims it made her labour so quick she barely noticed. You don't buy it, but you touch it just in case. There's a quiet transformation happening in your body. Your nipples have darkened, your back aches more each morning, and sometimes you feel dizzy when you stand. Agnes says that's the baby taking shape, draining your strength so it can grow. You eat what you can. Sometimes the food stays down, sometimes not. One night, you dream of blood-red apples falling from a tree and breaking open on the grass. You wake up sweating, clutching your belly. You whisper a prayer again, to Mary, to God, to whoever's listening. Please, let this be okay. You hang the charm pouch Agnes gave you above your bedpost and touch it every night before sleep. You don't know if it works. You don't care. It's something. You make the mistake of smiling a little too much at the baker's apprentice one morning. It's harmless. He hands you your rye loaf, brushes your fingers, and makes some offhanded joke about your glow. But 3 old women see it. They don't say anything then, but their eyes follow you all the way down the street. That afternoon, when you pass them again, you hear the phrase whispered behind your back, Eve's daughter. It's not a compliment. The more visibly pregnant you become, the more the world starts to weigh your actions like they're sins carved into stone. Your cravings are scrutinized, your footsteps are judged. If you laugh too loudly, someone says you lack modesty. If you cry too often, they say the baby will be weak. But if you show no emotion at all, that's dangerous too. Cold women give birth to witches. That's a thing people believe here. And if something goes wrong, if you fall or bleed or miscarry, everyone will want to know what you did to deserve it. Sex is another whispered problem. The priest has made it perfectly clear from the pulpit. Pleasure is sinful, even in marriage. Pregnancy is your penance for your body's lust. It's not just folklore, it's theology. You're the descendant of Eve, and Eve disobeyed. Therefore every stitch of pain that blooms in your back or your belly is a sacred punishment. But no one really follows this logic to the end. Because if sex is sin, and sin brings children, then how do people even make sense of joy? Of babies being a blessing? The contradictions pile up, and no one seems interested in reconciling them. People just believe both things at once, that babies are gifts, and that their arrival is proof of your sin. You hear other whispers, darker ones. There's a girl in the next village over, not much older than you, who got pregnant out of wedlock. Her baby died at birth, and people say it was the devil's child. Her body was buried on the edge of consecrated ground near the woods. Her name is no longer spoken in church. The fear isn't just about sin, it's about blame. Anything unusual becomes a mark of guilt. Twins, unnatural, a baby born with a cleft lip, a punishment, a miscarriage in the 3rd month. Clearly a sign you committed some secret, unconfessed crime. Your husband, if we can call him that, is confused by all this, but not overly concerned. He doesn't notice your anxiety, not really. He thinks you're being dramatic when you get upset at a sermon, or when you flinch at the midwife's rough hands. It's just talk, he says. People always talk. And then he goes back to sharpening his knife or feeding the pigs. But the talk matters. It shapes how you're treated. If your birth goes badly and something happens to the child, will people mourn with you? Or will they turn their backs and wonder what you did wrong? There's a story circulating right now about a woman 2 villages over who supposedly gave birth to a frog. Yes, a literal frog. The tale goes that she angered a forest spirit and was cursed, and when the baby came out it was slippery and green and croaking. She was burned. Not just shunned, burned. And the story is told with such morbid relish, like everyone is secretly glad to have a monster to talk about. You try to laugh it off, but you find yourself staring at your belly, trying to reassure yourself that what's growing inside is normal, human, good. And yet, despite all the shame and shadow, something in you resists it. You feel a stubborn pride, a low-burning fire. Your body is building something and no one, not the priest, not the old women, not even the healer with her rattling bones, can truly explain how. There's a magic to it, yes, but not the kind that needs charms or whispered prayers. It's the deeper kind, the kind that happens in your bones. Still, you do everything you're told. You avoid goat meat. Someone said it makes babies stubborn. You step carefully over thresholds and never sit with your legs crossed. You recite the Ave Maria every night, because they say Mary herself eases the labour of women who remember her. Your mother tells you about her first pregnancy. It was during a particularly harsh winter. The firewood kept running out. She slipped on ice in the 3rd month and almost lost the baby. You listen, wide-eyed, as she tells you how she lay still for days, afraid to sneeze or laugh. That child didn't make it. She never speaks the name, if it even had one. There's a common belief that children lost in pregnancy are stuck in a sort of limbo, not baptized, not buried in sacred ground, not even mourned properly, just vanished. The church says they were never truly alive in God's eyes, but mothers feel differently. You've seen your aunt pause in the middle of a sentence sometimes, eyes unfocused as though she's still remembering a child who was never held. You suspect more women carry these ghosts than they ever admit. Quirky fact here. Some medieval texts claim that women could influence the soul of the child during pregnancy. That the mother's moods, her diet, even her dreams could shape not just the baby's body but its eternal soul. Dream of fire too often, and your child might be a thief. Dream of the Virgin Mary, and you might give birth to a saint. Some people go as far as suggesting women read scripture aloud to their bellies. Others just hum old songs while they sew. That line between sin and superstition keeps blurring. You're not even sure which warnings come from the church and which come from Agnes. You just follow them all, hoping it's enough. You try to keep your thoughts clean, your hands busy, your back straight, because now everything you do is watched, not just by your neighbours, but by the heavens. It's exhausting. Some days you lie in bed and wonder what it would feel like to be pregnant in a time where the process wasn't laced with fear and shame. A time where your body was just a body, not a theological battleground. But then you feel a flutter, just the faintest twitch, like a ripple of movement deep in your belly, and everything else fades. For a moment there's no priest, no curses, no stories of devil children. There's just you, and the small, squirming thing you're holding inside. A life, yours. You wake to a strange knock at the door, not frantic, just firm and regular. It's barely light out, and the hearth hasn't even been stoked yet. Your breath clouds the air. When you open the door, she's already walking in, shaking snow from her shawl, a basket in one hand and a large leather pouch over her shoulder. It's the midwife, not Agnes, the healer, but Magda, the actual village midwife, the one who arrives when women start moaning and blood pools on the straw floor. She doesn't say good morning, just sets her basket down with a grunt and says, "I'm checking in." You try to offer her some of last night's bread, but she waves it off. "Not hungry. I've seen 3 bellies this week, and I'll see 5 more before Sunday. You're starting to round. About 4 moons in, I'd guess." You nod, unsure. She's probably right. You haven't kept perfect track. Time is hard to measure when your entire body has become a kind of slow-motion avalanche. Magda opens her pouch and takes out a handful of odd objects. A brass spoon, a twisted stick, a strip of red linen and something that looks unsettlingly like a fishbone. She lays them on the table and begins her assessment. Not medical, exactly, but experiential. She presses your belly gently with both hands, feeling for the shape of the womb. Then she smells your breath, which you weren't expecting. Apparently sweet breath means a boy, sour means a girl. You taste like onions and fear, so who knows what that means. She checks your fingernails, the veins in your wrist, and finally your eyes. She holds your eyelids open and stares into them like she's looking for signs of rot. Then she pulls back and nods, almost approvingly. Well, she says, it hasn't killed you yet. That's the closest thing you get to reassurance. In this world, midwives are everything. Part nurse, part sage, part necessary gamble. There's no license, no university degree. You learn from experience, often inherited through bloodlines. Magda was trained by her aunt, who was trained by her aunt and so on, in a generational relay of whispered secrets and practical skill. And while men are allowed to be physicians, the work of birth is kept to women. It's too messy, too undignified, too sacred in a way no man wants to touch. You've heard some men say midwives are witches, that they meddle with God's plan. But when the time comes, even the most suspicious husband sends for her. Because when the screaming starts, no one wants a priest. They want someone who knows what to do with a breech birth or a torn womb. Magda's hands are rough, calloused, and strong. You've seen her lift women up like sacks of grain when the birthing bed collapsed. She has a scar across her cheek from a goat that kicked her during a delivery in a barn. She wears it like a badge. Have you felt the quickening? She asks, meaning, have you felt the baby move? You have, just once or twice. Light flutters, like a fish swimming under the surface. You nod. She grunts again, this time with a little satisfaction. That's good, she says. Means the soul is in. Anything before that is just meat. This is the belief held widely across the land, that a baby isn't truly alive, not spiritually, until the quickening. Before that, it's just potential, a vessel. Some scholars will later argue about whether this idea came from theology or practicality. If a woman lost the child before quickening, it wasn't considered a full death. No need for baptism, no need for a funeral, just wrap it in cloth and bury it quietly behind the church, or not at all. Magda takes out a tiny bag of herbs and sets it by the fire. Boil this when your back begins to hurt too much, and don't let your feet get cold. Then she pauses and looks at you, her gaze suddenly heavy. You've got a good shape, not too narrow in the hips, that'll help. It doesn't sound like a compliment, but you accept it anyway. You ask her about the other births she's seen. She doesn't sugarcoat. One woman lost so much blood they had to press hot irons to her thighs to stop it. Another delivered a child with two heads, one real, one made of bone and skin, like a shadow twin. That baby lived 2 days. The mother never spoke again. Magda tells these stories not to scare you, but to prepare you. She wants you to know this isn't just hard, it's brutal, it's sacred, it's a test you cannot fail and cannot fully win either. Altia's fringe belief she mentions, barely above a whisper, is about birth curses. That if someone envies your pregnancy, they can spit behind your back or bury a doll stuffed with nettles under your threshold to curse the child inside. She's seen it, she says. One time she found a clay figure with a fishhook stabbed through its stomach buried near the barn of a stillborn child. She burned it on the spot. Whether it helped, who knows? She gives you something to wear, a cord tied with 7 knots, meant to be looped around your waist under your dress. Don't untie it, she warns, unless I tell you to. It's one of her tricks, something to distract the spirits, or maybe to reassure the mother more than the child. You wear it just in case. There's something else. Magda talks to the baby. After checking your belly again, she presses both palms to your skin and says softly, "Come when you're ready, little one." Not before. Not in the night. Not in the storm. It feels odd hearing her speak to something that's barely formed, but you're grateful. No one else does. Before she leaves, she glances at your hearth and your pile of linens. You'll need more rags, and save your softest shift. You'll want something clean to wrap the babe. Then she's gone, out the door and into the wind. You sit there for a long time after, fingers on your belly, thinking about the brass spoon and the smell of your breath, and that strange moment when she whispered to the creature inside you. Midwives aren't just birth workers, They're the final defense against pain, death, and the unknowable. And when the time comes, you know it'll be Magda, not your husband, not the priest, not your mother, who will be the one standing beside you when the line between life and death thins to almost nothing. You're sitting on a low stool by the hearth, trying to peel turnips without dropping them every 5 seconds because your belly keeps pushing against your knees, when 2 of your neighbours wander in, uninvited as always. They plop down like they've been summoned by some invisible village-wide gossip bell, and sure enough, they're already whispering. Not about you at first, just about some girl in the next town over who gave birth to a baby with red hair and one eye slightly lower than the other. Must be a girl, one of them says with a smirk. They say girls steal the beauty from the mother. And just like that, your life becomes a carnival guessing game. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Will it have hair like yours or a chin like your husband's? The entire village is suddenly an expert in gender prediction, and they've all got their methods. Some of them are weirdly aggressive about it. You're carrying low, must be a boy. No, she's craving sweets, definitely a girl. Wait, did you dream about fish recently? That's always a girl. You try to keep a polite smile plastered across your face, but inside, you're ready to launch a turnip across the room. What's more exhausting than pregnancy in the Dark Ages? Pregnant and being a walking village riddle. There's no real way to tell, of course. No scan, no test, no certainty. Just vibes, mostly. But the people around you will bet their dignity on those vibes. Agnes, the healer, claims she can tell just by measuring the pulse at your wrist. She wraps her thin fingers around it, mutters something about its rising rhythm, and declares, "Girl." Magda the midwife disagrees. No, the way she walks, it's the boy's swagger. Trust me. Even your husband gets involved now and then, mostly with dumb comments like, as long as it's got all its fingers, which would be comforting if it didn't also imply he's considered that it might not. There's this lingering belief in many corners of your world that the sex of a child isn't random. It's determined by God, or the stars, or your personal level of holiness. Some say it depends on whether the man's seed was stronger than the woman's matter. Others say the mother's blood being warmer or cooler affects the baby's sex. The logic is all tangled, and none of it actually makes sense, but people still build their lives around it. A quirky side note. One particularly strange old theory claims that if you lie on your right side after sex, you'll have a boy. On the left, a girl. So naturally, there's a whole catalogue of whispered advice about sleeping positions, moon phases, and what you happen to be eating the day you conceived. You vaguely remember it being stew with leeks. Make of that what you will. The guesses keep rolling in. The old miller's wife insists she knew her last child was a boy because she couldn't stand the smell of bread. And look at you, still eating bread. Girl for sure. Another woman tells you she once hung an iron knife over her bedpost and whichever way it pointed in the morning told her the baby's sex. You ask if it was right. She shrugs. No idea. Lost that one. You don't know how to respond to that. And then there are the dreams. Apparently everything you dream now is a message. Dream of feathers. That's a girl, delicate and clever. Dream of trees. A boy, strong and tall. But last night, you dreamt of water flooding through the town, lifting all the houses and turning roads into rivers. When you mention it, Agnes just frowns and mutters something about a child with secrets. Great. Here's where things get heavier. These guesses aren't just for fun, they carry expectations. If you're having a boy, people expect strength, lineage, someone to work the land or wield a sword one day. If it's a girl, well, get ready to marry her off by 15 and pay a dowry you probably don't have. Boys are the future. Girls are the expense. That's how people talk, even if no one says it that directly. Your husband doesn't say much either way, but you've heard the way he talks with his brothers. Need a son, he said once. Someone to carry the name. As though your womb is just a factory with one job, produce an heir. And if it's not a boy, well, then he'll try again. With you, if you survive the first round, you feel the weight of that more each day. The pressure isn't just to carry a child, it's to carry the right child. As if you have any say in the matter. Here's where the scholarly debates kick in. Some historians believe medieval people didn't actually value boys over girls that much, at least not in the lower classes, where everyone worked and every hand helped. Others argue the opposite, that sons were favoured heavily, especially for property, trade and religious reasons. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. Either way, you can feel it in the air. People want your baby to be a boy. but you don't know what you want. Some days you picture a son, strong, muddy, running barefoot through the village with a stick for a sword. Other days you imagine a daughter, quiet, clever, always watching. You wonder if you'd be gentler with her, knowing what she'll face. Maybe you'd teach her all the things no one told you. You sit by the fire late into the evening, rubbing your belly, thinking, what kind of world are you bringing this child into? A world where survival is a coin toss. A world full of rules no one understands and punishments no one deserves. A world that might not even let you see their face for more than a day or two. Still, you hope. You place your hand where you last felt movement. A soft push, low on the right side. You whisper, "Who are you?" Like you might get an answer. But the baby's quiet tonight. Resting, maybe. Or listening. You tell yourself that's a good thing. That quiet ones come out easy. You lean back, close your eyes, and try not to think about the stories of women who gave birth to still babies and refused to let them go for days. Or the woman last year who delivered a perfectly healthy boy only to die of fever the next morning. Or the one whose child was born with a veil over its face, which they said meant it could see the dead. Number. You don't think about that tonight. You think about hands, tiny ones, wrapping around your finger. Or maybe, just maybe, reaching out for something brighter than this small, hard life. You wake to a new sound, not birdsong or your husband's half-hearted coughing, but a dull creaking in your joints as you shift in bed. You try to sit up and your back protests like an old wooden chair about to give out. You're not even halfway through this pregnancy, and already your body feels like it's been stuffed into the wrong skin, tight where it used to be loose, and loose in places you didn't even know could stretch. Everything is heavier now. The days, your feet, even your own thoughts. There's a distinct moment sometime during the 4th or 5th moon where your body stops being yours. It's still in your control technically, but not entirely. You eat when the baby demands. You sleep when the exhaustion pins you. You move slower, your centre of gravity tipping forward until you start walking with that unmistakable waddle, like a duck in a dress. And medieval society has opinions about all of this, naturally. A pregnant woman's body is seen as both sacred and suspicious. Sacred because it's a vessel of life. Suspicious because, well, anything that powerful must be hiding something. There's no real anatomy understanding in this age. Most knowledge of the female body comes from ancient texts, mainly Galen and Hippocrates, passed down through monasteries and twisted by generations of translation and superstition. One common belief: women are cold and moist by nature. That's considered bad, by the way. Men are hot and dry, which apparently makes them superior. Don't ask how anyone knows this. No one's taking temperatures. Another theory holds that the womb has 7 chambers. 3 on the right for boys, 3 on the left for girls, and 1 in the middle that produces monsters. No one knows what qualifies as a monster, but judging by the stories it could mean anything from a baby born with extra fingers to one who just cries too much. You're not entirely sure what your womb is doing, but it definitely feels like some kind of monster is rearranging your organs with a tiny shovel. You can't eat without heartburn. Your ribs feel like they're being pried apart. And your bladder? Let's just say you're on a first-name basis with every privy in the village. You mention the discomfort to Agnes and she nods like you just said the sky is blue. That's your spleen, she says. Baby's too close, needs turning. She gives you a hot compress made of mint leaves and ash, and tells you to sleep on your left side facing the wall, with a goose feather tucked between your knees. Supposedly it'll discourage the womb from crowding the liver. You don't argue, you just do it. You'll do almost anything at this point. There's a curious superstition, half medicine, half magic, that the baby inside you can sense your emotions and mirror them. If you're afraid too often, they'll be a coward. If you get angry, they'll be born with a twisted mouth. So you try to stay calm, but calm doesn't come easy when your feet swell to the size of turnips and your lower back feels like it's being held together by unravelling rope. You're not allowed to rest too much either. That's bad for the humours. Your mother scolds you if you sit too long. Get up, she says, or you'll grow lazy and the baby will come late. But if you move too quickly, Agnes will click her tongue and mutter, "Keep still or the child will fall." There's no winning. Most days you still carry water from the stream, fetch wood for the fire, stir heavy pots over coals. You rest only when your hands are trembling or your legs start to give out. And even then, Someone will probably point out that another woman they knew once gave birth in the middle of baking bread and went right back to kneading dough the next day. Medieval heroism, it seems, is defined by how much agony you can tolerate without making a fuss. Here's a quirky little tidbit. Some medieval women wore metal girdles to support their backs, not fashionable ones, more like crude support belts. Think of them as early maternity corsets, but with significantly more discomfort and a very real chance of bruising your ribs. You don't have one, but you've seen them, hanging in the back of a church storeroom or in the homes of wealthier women. You sometimes envy them, but mostly you just wonder how they breathe in those things. Meanwhile, your breasts have taken on a life of their own, aching, swelling, even leaking sometimes. Agnes calls it preparing the milk. You call it confusing. No one really explains how breastfeeding works. It's just assumed. When the baby comes, you feed it. If the milk doesn't come, they'll blame you for being cold-hearted or cursed. Either way, it'll be your fault. The body isn't seen as a biological system. It's a series of signs from God, and yours is now a public canvas. Everyone gets to read it, interpret it, pass judgment on it. One neighbour tells you you're glowing, a sign of fertility. Another frowns and says you look pale. The baby might be taking too much of your strength. Even your urine is up for analysis. Some folks test it by pouring it near anthills and seeing how the insects react. If the ants avoid it, bad news. If they swarm, it means strength. You're not sure how you feel about being judged by ants. And yet, in all this chaos, there are moments, brief, tender ones, when you find some peace with your body. You'll be brushing your hair just to feel clean for a change, and the baby will roll beneath your ribs like a boat shifting in harbour. You'll look down and see your belly stretch and shift like the surface of a pond, and for a second it feels like you're touching something divine. Of course, the next second you're vomiting into a bucket because the smell of cabbage soup hit your nose wrong, but still, the magic lingers. There's also the fear, the ever-present fear that something is wrong and no one knows it, that your body's about to betray you in some secret, irreversible way. A slow bleed, a twisted cord, a baby too big for your hips. You dream of these things in flashes, bloody sheets, empty cradles, a cry that never comes. Then you wake up gasping, hand to your stomach, checking for movement. And here's a scholarly debate that's still ongoing. Did medieval women understand their bodies better than we give them credit for? Or were they entirely dependent on others to interpret what was happening? Some believe women developed intimate, intuitive knowledge of their own cycles, symptoms and rhythms, passed down through mothers and midwives. Others argue the opposite, that in a world of male-dominated religion and superstition, even a woman's own instincts weren't trusted unless validated by an authority. You're somewhere in the middle. You know this body. You feel its changes like weather patterns, but no one listens to you. They listen to Agnes, to Magda, to the priest. You're the one inside the storm, but they all think they can forecast it better than you can. So you take it one day at a time, one aching step at a time. You wrap your back with cloth soaked in vinegar and sage. You sip your tea of crushed dandelions and fennel. You pray. You work. You lie awake at night, counting the days, then try to stop counting because you've lost track anyway. And still, the baby grows. The day begins like most others. Grey sky, cold wind slipping under the doorframe, and your feet hitting the floor with a soft groan as your body complains before your mouth can. You're pregnant, yes, but you're also still everything else. Cook, cleaner, water hauler, stitcher, gatherer, firekeeper. The baby growing in your womb doesn't excuse you from the endless rhythm of medieval daily life. If anything, people expect more of you now, as if bringing a child into the world is some kind of village-wide team project, and you're just one cog in the holy machine. You try not to resent it. You try to imagine it as noble labour, like weaving your child's welcome into the world with every bucket of water, every crust of bread baked, every tunic patched. But some days, like today, you're just tired. Not sleepy, tired. That special brand of exhaustion that lives behind your eyes and in your bones. Your fingers are stiff with cold as you grind barley at the hearth. A little of it spills. You watch it hit the floor and think about whether it's even worth bending over. Then you do it anyway, because if you don't, someone will say something. Probably your husband, or your mother-in-law, who still insists she gave birth in the middle of a thunderstorm and then made dinner for 12 that same night. There's something both infuriating and strangely beautiful about how life just keeps going. Chickens need feeding. That one goat keeps escaping and has to be dragged back, bleating in protest. The neighbour's child comes running in with a scraped knee, which you clean with stale wine and wrap with cloth, even though you're queasy from your own sour stomach. There's no pause button for pregnancy in this age. It's not a condition, it's a continuation. You're expected to be the same person you were before, just puffier and possibly more hormonal. By midday, your lower back feels like it's been held in a vice. You lean against the table and breathe. Not dramatic, not loud, just a slow, desperate inhale through your nose, exhale through clenched teeth. If someone notices, they'll say you're being delicate. If they don't, well, you'll just deal with it alone like usual. You're not the only one. Every woman around you who has ever been pregnant walks like she's hiding a secret inside her hips. Some older, some younger, but all marked in some way. You watch them for hints, how they carry their bodies, how they breathe through pain, how they lift a sack of flour by turning sideways instead of bending forward. Survival tricks, passed without words. And then there's the superstition that slinks into every task. You can't sew too close to your belly. They say it'll stitch the baby's mouth closed. You shouldn't spin wool in the evening. It invites restless spirits to gather near. And if you dare eat from a cracked dish, that's an omen. A cracked womb. You throw out your favourite mug just to be safe. The fire pops and hisses as you stir the pot, the steam rising into your face like a wet blanket. You squint against it, trying not to gag. Pregnancy has made your senses cruelly sharp. The fish stew you made yesterday smells like a rotting dock. The hay in the corner somehow smells metallic today. And heaven forbid anyone uses vinegar near you. You'll be sick in seconds. You've become a walking storm of unpredictable triggers, and no one seems to care. Or worse, they laugh. She can't even smell onions now. What'll she do when the baby starts pooping? There are moments, of course, that sparkle against all this. One afternoon, as you rest on the stoop with a mug of warm broth, you feel something new. Not just a flutter, but a full turn, like the baby shifted from one side to the other. You place your hands on your belly and whisper, "I felt that." It's no one's business but yours, and for once, no one is watching. Sometimes women stop by not to judge, but just to be with you. They bring small things, a handful of lavender, a clean scrap of linen, a boiled egg. They sit beside you and don't say much. That's how you know they've had children too. They know silence can be a kindness. One of them, Ellen, tells you about her fourth child, the one she lost. She doesn't cry, just stares into the fire and says, "I still see her in dreams." You nod, understanding more than you expected to. And here's a piece of fringe belief that you find oddly comforting. Some people say that babies choose their mothers, that they float above the world like seeds on the wind and pick the woman whose soul calls loudest. It's not a church teaching, obviously. Probably not even something Magda would say out loud. But you hear it from an old woman who hasn't left her bed in a year, and it lingers in your thoughts for days after. Meanwhile, you keep working. You string herbs in the windows to dry. Fennel, mint, motherwort. You sweep out the corners of the house even though every movement sends a wave of heat and dizziness through your body. Your ankles throb by dusk. They've started swelling, and you try to hide it, under longer skirts. You sit on a stool and lift your feet into a basin of cool water. Your husband walks in and asks if the pigs have been fed. You don't answer right away. You stare into the water like it's trying to tell you something. Then you rise, slowly. There's no room for collapse here. Not now, not ever. Historians still debate how much physical labour medieval pregnant women truly endured. Some accounts suggest they worked until the very moment their waters broke. Hauling, kneading, shearing. Others suggest wealthier women or those with status were afforded rest, sometimes for months. But you're not noble, you're village stock. And here, pregnancy isn't a condition. It's just part of life, like winter, or taxes, or the creeping damp that ruins the thatch if you don't fix it in time. The sun sets, the fire is low again. You stretch, wincing at the pull in your ribs. You talk to the baby under your breath. You say, "You okay in there?" and wait for a sign. Sometimes you get one, a twist, a push, a little rebellion of tiny limbs. Tonight there's nothing, just warmth, just quiet. You try to picture the end of all this. The baby in your arms, the village peeking through the doorway to whisper blessings and judgments in equal measure. You wonder if the work will stop then. You already know the answer, but for now, you rest your hand on your belly and sit a moment longer. In the dark, in the quiet, in the calm before whatever comes next. Someone brings you a cup of cloudy liquid one morning, slightly warm, slightly sour, and definitely suspicious. It's a blend of wine and your own urine, mixed and left to sit overnight. The local wisdom says this mixture can tell you if the baby's healthy, if you'll carry to term, and even whether you're possessed by an evil spirit or just, exhausted and bloated. You sniff it once, gag lightly, and then do what you're expected to do. Stare at it until someone, probably Agnes, declares its verdict like she's reading your future from tea leaves. Welcome to medieval diagnostics. The wine and urine test is one of many low-grade scientific methods used to monitor pregnancy in a time when no one really understood the uterus beyond mysterious sack of potential horror. The logic behind it is this. If the mixture stays clear or changes colour in a certain way, everything's fine. If it turns thick or froths or smells strange, stranger than usual, something could be wrong. What exactly is wrong is never clearly defined. Could be miscarriage, could be demonic influence, could be an imbalance in your humours, or maybe you just ate something weird. The rules are never specific. That's kind of the theme here. Vague interpretations of bodily signs, treated with the seriousness of divine prophecy. There are other tests too. One involves placing a garlic clove in a woman's vagina overnight, and then checking her breath in the morning. If she smells of garlic, apparently her womb is opened, meaning conception is still possible. If not, then something's blocked or she's already pregnant. You try not to think about how many women have lain awake, breath held, trying to detect garlic in their own mouth at sunrise. And the most common test of all? Just watching. People stare at your belly, your face, your hands. They note the colour of your skin, the sheen of sweat, the faint line starting to trail down your stomach like a shadow. A dark line means vitality, they say. No line. That's bad. One old man swears he can predict the baby's future just by watching how often you blink. You blink twice, slowly, and wait for his verdict. He nods sagely and mutters, "It'll be clever, but stubborn." Like that helps. Agnes insists on taking your pulse again. She has you lie back, wrist limp in her hand, eyes closed. "Your heart tells the whole tale," she says, though it's not your heart she's measuring, it's the speed of your blood, the warmth of your skin, the tremble in your fingers. She listens, presses harder, frowns slightly. "You're too dry," she decides. "We'll need dandelion root and milk thistle, maybe some ground silver if I can get it." You don't ask how ground silver is supposed to help, you just nod. You've become a living experiment, a shifting body full of omens and half-truths. Everyone's watching for signs. Is your hair thinning? Are your eyes brighter or duller than last week? Does your sweat smell more metallic or more earthy? These differences matter, apparently. They're clues, but what they're clues to is always fuzzy. There's one local tale about a woman whose belly grew but whose baby never kicked. She carried for months until the midwife opened her up and found nothing but a lump of gristle. Some say it was a punishment for vanity. Others whisper it was a changeling, a fey child who left nothing behind but flesh. You pretend not to listen when these stories float around, but at night you lie awake with your hand on your stomach, waiting for movement like it's a promise. Sometimes it comes late, sometimes not at all, so you welcome the tests, even when they're nonsense. The wine, the garlic, the shape of your urine, because even pretending to know what's going on is better than being completely in the dark. There's another test involving barley. You take a handful of seeds, soak them in your urine for several days, and watch to see if they sprout. If they do, the pregnancy is considered viable. If not, well, you pray harder. This one actually has a tiny grain of scientific truth behind it. Hormones in pregnant urine can affect seed growth, but no one knows that yet. They just know the barley spoke, or didn't. And in the absence of real knowledge, the tests become rituals, comforting, if a little gross. You begin to look forward to them in a strange way. Agnes brings her little bottles and makes you sniff and taste and touch, and though you never understand the conclusion she draws, you feel better afterward. Like someone has peeked behind the curtain and come back alive. You begin to notice patterns in yourself too. little things no one taught you to look for. When you wake in the morning and your hands are stiff, you know the swelling will be worse that day. When you feel pressure low in your belly, you drink more broth and move slower. You're learning your body in ways you never thought to before. Not because someone told you how, but because it demands to be learned. And here's where the historians start scratching their heads again. Were these rituals pure superstition or an early form of obstetric knowledge? The dividing line is thin. Sure, testing urine with wine isn't exactly modern science, but it was a method, a repeatable one. And many midwives kept journals, passed down through families, filled with scribbled symbols and herbal formulas and crude sketches of swollen bellies. They weren't doctors, but they weren't clueless either. Still, the fear never fades. You keep an eye on every stain in your linens, every sudden cramp, every dream that leaves you waking in a sweat. A dream of a bird with no beak, a baby crying from behind a wall. You wake from these dreams with your heart pounding and the bedclothes tangled around your legs. You don't tell anyone about the dreams, they'd only bring more tests, more theories. Maybe someone would sprinkle salt on your threshold, or hang dried nettles above your bed, and you're not sure how much more of that you can take. Instead, you quietly do your own test. You whisper to your belly in the dead of night. Ask the baby to kick once if everything's okay. Just once. You wait, hand pressed to the curve of your abdomen, holding your breath like it's the last air left in the room. Sometimes the baby answers, sometimes not, but always the sun rises, and the urine goes in the cup, and the guessing begins again. You're walking back from the well with a bucket in each hand when it hits you, out of nowhere and all at once. A craving so intense it makes you stop mid-step and blink into the wind like someone just whispered a secret in your ear. Honey. No, not just honey. Honey slathered on onions, or maybe pickled onions dipped in honey, or honey stirred into wine and poured over roasted garlic. You're not sure exactly, but your body is suddenly shouting, find it, eat it. Now, you don't even like onions that much. It's not just hunger, it's something deeper, stranger. Like your stomach has a mind of its own and your mouth is only along for the ride. Back in the house, you hunt through the pantry, ignoring your husband's raised eyebrow as you dump the last of the honey onto a hunk of old bread and top it with a slice of salted fish. You eat it, you do not enjoy it. But the craving fades, satisfied, as if your body just checked a box on some mystical to-do list. In the Middle Ages, cravings like this aren't dismissed as mere biology. They are messages, omens, warnings, and not just about your health, about your morality. Wanting something too strongly, especially if it's strange or forbidden, is a dangerous thing. They call it maternal impression, and people believe that what you think, want, or even dream about can shape your baby's appearance, personality, and fate. So, if you crave too many sweet things, your baby might grow up indulgent. Too much sour food. They'll be sharp-tongued and bitter. If you eat nothing but pork, they might come out with a piggish face. Yes, that's an actual belief someone probably passed down with a straight face. Worst of all, if you think dark thoughts, if you become jealous or wrathful or obsessed, they say your baby might carry that darkness, marked inside and out. There's a tale of a woman who envied her sister's red dress so badly during pregnancy that her child was born with a red handprint on her chest. Another woman dreamt constantly of toads. Her son was born with bulging eyes and stumpy fingers. Coincidence? Not to medieval minds. So naturally you start tracking your cravings like a spy. You catch yourself mid-desire and ask, what does this mean? A sudden need for milk, nurturing instinct. A strange compulsion to chew bark, probably bad. You want coal one afternoon, and for a full hour you're convinced it's because you're growing a boy with a strong fire inside. Agnes says you're being foolish, but then she offers you a clove-stuffed orange to calm the humours. So who's really the foolish one? Then there's the issue of avoiding certain things. Not just food, but sounds, sights, emotions. Looking at a deformed animal could imprint something on the baby. Witnessing violence or illness, same danger. You begin to avert your eyes constantly. A hunched beggar, a dog with a broken leg, even an ugly patch of mould on a wall. Anything might leave its ghost on your child's face. You become wary of everything. You skip market days when the crowds are rowdy. You walk a longer route to avoid the butcher's shop. You hum songs while cooking to keep your thoughts light and repetitive. And when you do dream of unsettling things, A child covered in bees, or a tree full of teeth, you bite your lip and try not to remember. Here's something scholars still puzzle over. Were these ideas about cravings and impressions just superstition, or were they part of a deeper psychological logic, an attempt to give pregnant women some form of agency in a world where they had almost none? Maybe both. It's controlled by obsession, perhaps. If you can't shape your fate by strength or science, maybe you can shape it by sheer force of will, by choosing to think only the right thoughts, by curating your inner world as carefully as you sweep your hearth. Of course, some cravings are impossible to control. You want dirt one day. Actual dirt. Your mouth waters when you catch the smell of wet earth. You try to fight it, but eventually you kneel by the garden, press 2 fingers to the soil, and lift it to your tongue like a stolen sweet. It tastes like nothing. Still, you feel better afterward. You mention it to Magda. She raises one eyebrow and says, "That means the child is rooted." Good. Then she walks away like she didn't just say something both incredibly comforting and vaguely unsettling. There's also the matter of repulsion. You can't stand meat for weeks. The smell of cooking pork sends you retching into the bushes. Someone suggests this means the baby will be a monk, pure and ascetic. Someone else says it means you've angered a spirit. Either way, no one helps with the cooking. Some cravings are shared. You meet another pregnant woman at the well, her belly as round as yours. She confesses that she's been drinking boiled clover tea every day for weeks, not because she likes it, but because it feels lucky. You nod, understanding completely. The things you do while pregnant don't need to make sense. They just need to feel right. And that's the strange truth about cravings in this time. They aren't just biological urges, they're spells, tiny rituals of desire and satisfaction. Every bite, every sip, every scent inhaled with closed eyes becomes a prayer to the future. Let this baby come out whole. Let this pain be worth it. Let me live to see it. You start keeping a small list, scratched onto bits of wood and slate, of the things you've longed for: honey, thyme, ash, cold milk, cloves, plum jam, roasted apples, soap. You think one day, maybe, you'll show it to the child and say, "This is what you were made of." Quirky fact. There's a medieval belief that if you deny a pregnant woman her craving, the baby will be born with a mark in the shape of whatever she was denied. A cherry-shaped birthmark on the thigh, a fish-shaped one on the shoulder. So when you ask for stewed pears 3 days in a row, your husband doesn't argue. He just finds them. At night, you lie in bed and try to chase away bad dreams with sweet thoughts. You picture lavender fields, ripening pears, the baby, smiling, holding a spoon. You're still hungry, but also full. It starts with a stain. Just a small dark smear on your linen underthings, barely noticeable, barely there. You stare at it for a long time, your fingers trembling against the fabric, heart thudding so hard it echoes in your ears. You don't know if it's blood or something else. You don't know if it's normal, and that's the worst part. You never know. You don't say anything at first. You wash the cloth quietly, as if scrubbing hard enough might make the whole thing unhappen. But the worry stays with you like a shadow, one you can't shake no matter how many candles you light or prayers you mutter. Is this it? Has something gone wrong? You try to remember everything you've done the last few days. Did you lift something too heavy? Did you sleep on your right side instead of your left? Did you think the wrong thoughts? You even wonder if the honey on onion craving from last week had something to do with it. Maybe the baby didn't like it. Maybe you invited something in. By the next day there's pain, not the soft ache you've grown used to, but sharp. Pulling cramps like something inside is trying to leave. Your breath catches. You sit down fast, your hands cupping the underside of your belly, whispering, "No, no, not now, please." Miscarriage, in the Dark Ages, isn't just a medical crisis, it's a moral one. If you lose the baby now, this early, they call it a wasted seed or a quickening failed. They don't offer much comfort, they don't hold your hand, instead they look at you with narrowed eyes and say things like, "Were you careless?" Or, "God takes what he will." Sometimes they don't say anything at all, they just avoid you, as if your loss might be contagious. And if you're unmarried, it's worse, much worse. A lost child outside of marriage is treated as proof of sin, even if no one says it aloud. You've heard the stories. The girl who bled for days in secret and buried the remains near the riverbank. The one who was dragged before the priest and made to confess while still pale and shaking. There are whispers that she did it on purpose, that she drank pennyroyal in secret, that she sat in a hot bath with certain herbs and prayed the wrong way. The church would call it murder. The village just calls it unnatural. You think of her now and you wonder, if this pain gets worse, what will they think of you? You sit in bed all day, barely moving, the blankets pulled tight around your shoulders even though it's warm. Every time you feel the tiniest shift in your body, you freeze, you hold your breath, you wait. Magda arrives that evening. She says nothing at first, just takes your hands and presses her forehead against yours like she's listening through your skin. Still in there, she says softly. But it's trying to decide. Trying to decide. The phrase rattles around your head, as if the baby is standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering, uncertain whether to jump or step back. As if life, your life, isn't the only will at work here. She lays a hand on your belly and tells you to lie still. No walking, no bending, no heavy thoughts. She leaves you with a bitter brew that tastes like bark and burned honey, and tells you to drink it all. You do. Then you lie back, your head pounding with what-ifs. Quirky medieval fact. Some people believe that when a woman miscarries, a demon comes to carry off the child's soul, so they place iron tongs under the bed or salt at the door to keep it away. Your mother sprinkles salt before you can ask her not to. She hums softly while she does it, some half-remembered lullaby from your childhood. You pretend not to cry. For days you stay still. You do nothing. And it's agony. Not just because of the fear, but because this world doesn't know what to do with stillness. If you're not working, you're either sick or lazy. Your husband keeps pacing. Your neighbours start asking questions. Someone drops off stale bread and won't meet your eyes. No one wants to say the word, not aloud. Because in this world, loss isn't a medical reality. It's a failure, a mystery, a punishment, and worst of all, it's your fault. There's a debate among modern scholars about how often medieval women miscarried and how those losses were recorded, or more often, not recorded at all. In poorer communities, miscarriages were seen as part of life. Not tragic, just expected, especially in the early pregnancy when the baby hadn't quickened yet. Those weren't considered real children. No name, no grave, no weeping, just a whispered prayer and a return to normal duties as fast as possible. But you feel it differently. You would grieve, even if no one else did. On the fourth day, the pain lessens, the bleeding stops, and when Magda returns, she listens again, hands cold on your belly, and nods. It's quiet, she says, but it's still holding on. You don't even realise you've been holding your breath until that moment. You let it go in a long, shaky sigh. Relief washes over you like cold rain. Still, something's changed. You're more cautious now. You carry your body differently, like a cracked bowl that mustn't tip. You walk slower. You talk less. You become quiet, inward, protective. The village doesn't ask many questions. No one says what they suspect. They just nod at you with something halfway between pity and respect. Maybe they assume you lost the baby and aren't saying, or maybe they don't want to know. Either way, the silence becomes a kind of shield. You talk to the baby more after that. Soft things, little stories, hopes. You place your hand over your belly and say, "Stay with me." Sometimes, in the stillest part of the night, you feel a flutter in response. It isn't over. It's never over. But for now, just for now, you're still too. The pain in your feet begins before sunrise. You swing your legs off the bed and plant your soles on the floor, only to hiss through your teeth as the ache shoots upward. Sharp, hot, like the bones themselves are splintering. You shuffle toward the fire, clinging to furniture and walls like an old woman twice your age. Your ankles are swollen and pink, puffed so badly they press against the tops of your shoes, which you quickly kick off in defeat. There's no hiding it now. Your body has turned into a slow-moving monument to discomfort. You slump onto a stool and raise your legs, resting them on an overturned bucket. You were told to expect this. Everyone warned you. Oh, by your 7th month your feet will feel like they've walked to Jerusalem and back. And yet knowing it was coming doesn't make it easier. It's not just the ache. It's how relentless it is. There's no break, no good position, just endless shifting from one sort of misery to another. Agnes brings you a bucket of cool water and tells you to soak them twice a day. Add a bit of holy water if you can get it, she says. as though that's something you keep in your pantry next to the garlic and dried beans. You ask if she has any. She raises her eyebrows and says, "What do I look like, the bishop?" Still, she hands you a small vial. Sprinkle, not pour. The church charges for this stuff. The soaking helps, but only a little. The pain always comes back. Your joints are loose now, like hinges that have been pulled too far. It's something to do with the softening of your body, preparing for birth, or so they say. They also say you shouldn't cross your legs, sleep on your back, or look at the moon too long when it's full. Everyone's got a theory. Everyone's suddenly a midwife. Your back starts hurting too, right between your shoulder blades, then lower, then all over. It's the kind of ache that makes even breathing feel like a chore. When you bend to pick something up, the pressure in your belly pushes against your lungs, making you gasp. You have to rest more now, which makes people talk. Your husband says, "You were never this tired with the first one," then winces when he remembers how that ended. You say nothing, but your silence is a stone tossed into the room. He leaves soon after, muttering something about checking the goats. To keep the worst thoughts away, you turn to rituals. Every morning you trace a cross over your belly, top to bottom, left to right. Not out of piety exactly, but habit. You whisper a little rhyme that your aunt used to say when she was pregnant. Strong bones, wide breath, skin like morning bread. You don't know where she got it, but it comforts you. Maybe that's enough. Your mother brings over a small pouch sewn from red cloth, filled with rosemary, rue, and something that smells like burned sugar. She hangs it above your bed with a string and tells you not to touch it. For health, she says, and against envy. That last part is important. Envy, in this world, isn't just a feeling. It's a force, a poison. If someone covets your happiness too fiercely, it could sour the womb. You've heard stories of women losing children days after being praised too publicly. Such a strong kicker, someone would say, and then nothing. So you start deflecting compliments. If someone says you look round in a good way, you laugh and say, "I feel like a mule." If they admire your glow, you reply, "It's sweat." You ward off praise like it's fire, because in some ways it is. One day, a traveller passes through the village selling relics. He claims to have a splinter of the true cross, a thorn from the crown, and somehow a vial of St. Margaret's tears. You don't believe him, but St. Margaret is the patron of childbirth, and you figure even a fake tear is better than none. You barter a wheel of cheese for the vial and tuck it into your shift near your breast. Quirky fact: there's a legend that St. Margaret was swallowed by a dragon and burst forth unharmed, symbolising safe delivery. Some women in labour hold tiny figurines of her or sleep with her prayer written under their pillow. You haven't reached that point yet, but the vial makes you feel better. Like insurance. Even if it's cheese-priced insurance. Around this time, you start preparing the birthing space, though no one calls it that. It's just the corner or the bed area. You clean obsessively, sweeping out dust and spiderwebs that never bothered you before. You wash your linens twice, hang them to dry, then wash them again. Everything must be clean, not because of germs, which no one understands yet, but because cleanliness is godliness, and God is watching. You stack rags by the hearth, fill jars with warm broth and crushed herbs. You even prepare a small wooden spoon, the kind your mother once gave you when you had a fever. To bite when the pain comes, she says, pressing it into your palm. You nod, though you're not ready to think about the pain just yet. And then there's the holy water again. You get more from the church this time, slipping in early when the priest is still dusting the altar. You whisper that you're due soon. He blesses the water, gives you a stiff nod and avoids your eyes. The church doesn't always know what to do with pregnant women. You're both sacred and stained, even Mary in one tired, bloated body. You take the water home and sprinkle it along your windows, across the doorframe and beneath your bed. Then you drink a little, just in case. That night your dreams are strange. You dream of walking barefoot through a cathedral made of snow, the walls cold and glowing. A child's voice echoes through the white, calling, "I'm coming, but not yet." You wake with tears dried on your cheeks, unsure if you're comforted or terrified. Here's a scholarly debate worth mentioning. Did medieval women truly believe all these rituals worked, or were they simply the only tools available? Faith and desperation make good bedfellows. When you have nothing else, no doctor, no diagnosis, no control, you reach for whatever's within arm's length. Herbs, water, prayers, charms. You build armour from crumbs. Your feet still ache, your back still burns, but you carry on. because the child is still coming whether you're ready or not. Whether the moon is right or the salt circle holds, or St. Margaret's fake tear is genuine. You rise in the morning, soar and slow, and begin again. You hear her before you see her, the sound of her voice carrying through the village like a crow's caw on a grey morning. "Boil more nettles," she's shouting. "And where's that clean cloth I left under the bench? You didn't toss it, did you? I told you to save it, not feed it to the pigs." You glance up from your seat by the hearth just as Magda barges into your doorway, like the draft itself has delivered her. Today she's in rare form. There's a new mother in the next hamlet over, and the birth wasn't a clean one. The kind of story that makes your belly tighten and your throat go dry. Magda doesn't offer many details, just mutters things like, "Too much blood," and "the cord was wrapped thrice." Then she shakes the mud off her boots and plops down on your stool like she owns the place. Midwives aren't saints. They're not all warm smiles and lavender compresses. Some of them, like Magda, are half battle-hardened general, half hedge witch. She pulls out a handful of strange tools from her pouch, a thick wooden dowel, a brass pin, a piece of wax shaped like a coin, and begins cleaning them on your linen. You're not sure if you should be honoured or horrified. "Have you been practicing your breath?" she asks, not looking up. You blink at her. You've been practicing surviving, if that counts. "In through the nose, out through the teeth," she says, demonstrating with a hiss that sounds vaguely threatening. "Do it! Now!" You obey. It feels ridiculous, but you do it again. Magda isn't cruel, just honest. Brutally, relentlessly honest. She's seen too many births to be anything else. She tells you how many babies she's caught, how many mothers she's buried. She says it plainly, like counting chickens. "You want me to lie?" she asks when you flinch at her words. "You want me to say it's going to be easy? That you'll sing a lullaby and the baby'll slip out like a fish?" She spits into the fire. "Not how it works, girl. Not ever." You ask her about pain. How much? How long? What it will feel like. She laughs. Actually laughs. And says, "Like dying," and then coming back. You're not sure whether to feel grateful for the honesty or sink into a quiet panic. Still, you listen. Because Magda knows things. Not just herbs and breathing tricks, but secrets. She tells you about using butter to ease tearing, about holding a woman's hips and rocking her gently when the baby won't move, about whispering to the child inside to turn, just a little, when labour's gone on too long. She speaks of listening with your fingers and letting the baby lead the way. And then, almost casually, she pulls a dried sprig of something from her pouch and hands it to you. "Hold this during birth," she says. "St. John's wort. Keeps the shadow things out." You don't ask what shadow things she means. Midwives often walk the line between medicine and magic, not because they wanted to, but because no one else would. The church tolerated them, barely. Male physicians scorned them, unless they needed information, in which case they'd copy their knowledge and claim it as their own. But in the villages, women like Magda were essential. Feared, yes. Respected, more often. But always necessary. There's a story about a midwife in the next town over who took too much upon herself, as the saying goes. When a noblewoman lost her child, the midwife was accused of witchcraft, said she'd cursed the birth. They dragged her from her home and shaved her head in the village square. No trial, no confession, just humiliation. She vanished a few days later. Some say she fled into the woods. Others say the devil took her as payment. Magda doesn't talk about that story, but you suspect she knows it well. Quirky fact, in some regions, midwives were required to swear an oath before delivering a child. Not just to God, but to the church, promising never to use diabolical means, or to speak charms over the baby. Of course, most of them did anyway, quietly, between breaths. Because when a woman is screaming and half dead from the effort, you say whatever word you think might help, whether they come from the Bible or the woods. As your labour draws nearer, Magda visits more often. Sometimes she brings gifts, a spoonful of honey, a strip of dried leather to bite, a scrap of soft wool for swaddling. She never smiles when she gives them, just says, "You'll want this," and moves on. Other times she asks you to practice kneeling, then squatting, then lying on your side. "Everybody's different," she says. "Some want to give birth like queens, some like cows. It's not up to you." She also teaches you about the signs, how to know when it's truly time, the bloody show, the tightening that doesn't stop, the need to grunt like you're moving a boulder. You blush at the language, but she doesn't care. There's no modesty in birth, she says, just skin and blood and teeth. And then there's the cord. She talks about it like a snake, something that might wrap or twist or strangle. She shows you how she checks for it, how she cuts it, how she ties it off. Too slow, she says, and the baby might not cry. Too fast and you shock it. You ask if that's the worst thing that can happen. She stares at you a long moment, then says nothing. Some days you wish she were gentler, that she'd smile or pat your hand or tell you everything will be fine. But then you remember, her honesty is a gift. Maybe not the one you wanted, but the one that might save your life. The truth is, not all midwives are good. You've heard the horror stories. The woman who used rusty shears. The one who disappeared mid-birth drunk on elderberry wine. But Magda? She may be rough. She may smell like smoke and sleep with one eye open. But she's seen death and faced it down. That counts for something. That means something. On her way out one day, she turns back and says, "Choose a name, girl. For you, not just the child. If you go too quiet, I'll need to call you back." She says it like it's an afterthought. But you write one down anyway, just in case. You're leaning against the doorframe, trying to breathe through another strange twisting sensation in your belly. Tight, then loose again, like a fist squeezing your insides, when you hear the raised voices. 2 women, arguing at the well. You wouldn't usually listen, but one of them says your name. Not loudly, not kindly. And just like that, your stomach goes from tight to cold. You stay out of sight, peering through the shutter slats. One of them, a thin woman with a hawkish nose and too much time on her hands, is saying she saw you muttering to the fire last night. The other, older, is nodding. You weren't muttering. You were talking to your baby. You do it when you're alone now, especially when it kicks hard and you need to soothe it. Or yourself. But that's not what they think. They think you are casting something, and you know how fast a whisper like that can spread. It's happening again. That uneasy shift from expectant mother to suspicious figure. A pregnant woman isn't always innocent in this world. If you know too much, if you pray too softly, if you hang the wrong herbs or say the wrong phrase, you slide too easily into something more dangerous. The line between mother and witch is thin, especially when people are bored or frightened. Or jealous. You try to brush it off, but the next day, a girl from 2 houses over avoids your gaze. A loaf of bread left at your door is mysteriously missing its centre, and when you try to hand a child a carved toy, you made it during one of your quieter afternoons. The child's mother snatches her away like you'd offered a knife. You're not imagining it. You've seen this before. A year ago, another woman, Gertha, lost her child in the middle of the night. It was her 3rd, and no one had much sympathy. They said maybe it wasn't meant to be. Then someone said she kept too many cats, that her husband had a bad harvest, that she always smelled like iron. You remember watching her be dragged from her cottage, the look in her eyes somewhere between defiance and disbelief. No one's tried that with you, not yet. But your belly is big now. You walk differently. You don't go to mass as often. You physically can't some days. But that absence becomes fuel for talk. She thinks she's above prayer, one man says. You hear him through the wall while he talks to your husband. Your husband doesn't defend you. He just shrugs. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women in the Dark Ages were always a little suspect. If you were quiet, you were plotting. If you were loud, you were hysterical. If your birth was too easy, they said you used a charm. If it was too hard, they said God was punishing you. And if the baby came out strange, too small, too silent, too soon, it didn't matter how much you'd prayed. The whispers would start anyway. Agnes tells you not to worry. They talk because they have nothing else to do. They'll stop when the baby comes and you feed them all soup. But even she is quieter now when she visits. She doesn't bring herbs in the open anymore. She wraps them tightly in cloth and slides them into your hand like contraband. There's a fringe belief going around that certain women can choose their child's spirit before birth, that they make bargains with old gods or forest shadows, that the birthmarks on a baby's skin are sigils. That extra hair or extra silence means the baby's not just human. It sounds ridiculous until you realise how many people believe it, until you catch them watching you like you're something other, until you hear someone mutter that maybe your labour will bring a storm, maybe the baby won't cry, maybe you should be watched closely just in case. You want to laugh, or scream, or both. Magda catches wind of it and stomps into your house one afternoon, all fire and fury. If I hear one more village idiot say you're a witch, I'll strip down, smear myself in soot, and chase them through the streets with a hot poker. You don't doubt it. She paces your room like a wolf protecting its den. They want someone to blame, she says. If your baby's healthy, you've used magic. If it dies, you've invited the devil. Either way, they get their story. You ask her what to do. She looks at you for a long time before answering. Birth the child. Feed it. Keep it close. Let them watch. They'll forget once the next scandal rolls through. Quirky fact. In some areas, midwives were sometimes accused of witchcraft simply for doing their jobs too well. A baby born with no complications. Suspicious. A woman who lived through a breech birth. Must be unnatural. Some midwives kept knives hidden in their skirts, not for delivering babies, but for defending themselves when the churchmen came asking questions. Even your dreams turn on you now. You dream of being tied to a tree while your belly glows like a lantern. People gather around, whispering, pointing, praying. You try to speak, but all that comes out is water. You wake drenched in sweat, hands gripping your belly like you're afraid someone's going to take it. You stop walking to the well. You send your younger cousin instead. You stay inside more, windows half shuttered. You don't want to look scared, but you are. Not just of childbirth anymore, but of them. Because in this world, women don't have to do anything wrong to be punished. They just have to exist in the wrong way. Too proud, too strange, too quiet, too knowing. You aren't any of those things. Or maybe you are. You don't even know anymore. You hold your belly one night and whisper, "Stay in there a little longer, just until they forget me." You don't think the baby hears you, because that next morning you feel something shift. It starts just before dawn, that peculiar sense of something changing. Not pain, not yet, but an undeniable tightness that coils around your lower belly like a cord being drawn. You sit up, then lie back down, then sit again, each position feeling wrong in a new way. There's a warmth spreading through your pelvis, not soothing but heavy, as if your bones have decided to start shifting in protest. You whisper to the baby, one hand across your bump, and for the first time in days there's no flutter. Just stillness. Waiting. By the time the village rooster announces another dull morning, you already know. You don't need a midwife or a wise woman or a priest to tell you. It's begun. There's no ceremony, no sacred bell, no calm instructions whispered in a hushed room, like the stories told in noble houses. You vomit twice before the sun rises fully, grip the edge of your bedpost and feel the first true contraction ripple through you like a thunderclap under your skin. It isn't sharp, it's deep. A force more than a sensation. A reminder that your body is no longer your own, not even a little. You've spent your whole life in a world that treats women's pain as a given. Bruised feet from hauling water, expected. Sliced fingers from chopping roots, normal. Torn muscles from too much firewood, stop whining. But this pain, this is different. This is ancient. This is the kind that silence can't hold. Your mother, who's been watching you like a hawk for days now, notices the way you grip your belly and doesn't ask questions. She simply nods and disappears from the room. Within minutes, someone's running down the lane to fetch Magda. And suddenly your house, the one that's been so quiet these past weeks, is full of noise. Footsteps, whispers, the sound of water sloshing into iron pots, a window being opened then slammed shut again, the smell of herbs and ash and sweat. Someone lays hands on your back, another sets out cloths, and someone, you don't even know who, scatters salt across the threshold while muttering a prayer that you can't quite catch. You hear a laugh from the hallway, nervous, not mocking, just the kind of laugh people make when they're afraid and pretending they're not. Magda arrives like a storm, shaking water from her cloak and tossing her bag onto the table without greeting. She doesn't ask if you're sure, she just nods and pulls back her sleeves. "Warm water, clean towels, and clear the damn floor," she barks, and the room rearranges itself around her presence. You're told to walk, but slowly. Not for the sake of the baby, though that's part of it, but to let your body remember how to open. "Move like you're parting a curtain," Magda says, which makes no sense until the next contraction comes and you realise, yes, that's exactly it. Like something large is trying to press through a space that wasn't made for it, and you're just trying to get out of its way. You try to focus, breathe, count. But counting slips away after the first hour, or maybe the second. You lose time easily. Here. Between the waves of pain and the shifting of people in and out of the room, time becomes a loop. The candle on the shelf melts, replaced by another. The fire dims, then flares. Outside, rain begins tapping at the thatch roof, light and persistent. Someone lays a charm under your bed, a small piece of bone tied with red thread. It's meant to ward off spirits who lurk during childbirth, waiting to steal breath. You've heard of them before, pale women with long fingers who sneak through windows and hover over cradles. Whether they're real or not doesn't matter. Right now you want every bit of help you can get. The pressure builds. Your thighs tremble. You're moved to a birthing stool, a wooden contraption with a hole in the middle, old as anything in the house. You don't want to sit, but you do, because everyone is telling you to, because you can't stand anymore, because you're afraid if you stop following directions everything will spiral. There's blood. Not much, but enough to make your breath catch. Magda sees it and nods. The door's opening, she says. Then she wraps a hot cloth and presses it against you in a way that should hurt, but doesn't. Nothing hurts more than what's already happening. The heat just dulls it a little. Someone brings you leather to bite. You refuse. Then 10 minutes later, you ask for it. When it's pressed between your teeth, you understand why. It's better to scream into something than into the void. Your moans aren't elegant. They sound like war cries, or curses, or prayers. Maybe all three. Here's a strange little medieval fact. Some believed that laying an iron key beneath the birth stool could unlock the womb and speed up labour. There's one now under your seat. You didn't even see it placed there, but part of you hopes it helps. Magda touches your belly and says the baby's coming slow. Not stuck, not dangerous, just slow. The head's stubborn, she mutters. Takes after someone. You want to laugh, but the contraction hits before you can. Now, the walls start to warp. Not literally, but in your mind. The edges of the room blur. The voices become distant. Your body becomes the only sound, the only sensation. You are not a person anymore. You are an event, a passage, a gate. No one teaches you how to push. Not really. Your body decides. It bears down. You feel your bones flex. Your pelvis, that ancient hinge, begins to shift. Magda urges you on, voice low and firm. Good. Again. Let it come. Don't fight. There's a tearing sensation, but not sharp. Just deep. Like fabric stretched too tight. And then, one breath, one push, one howl so loud it scares the chickens out back. Something slips downward. Not out, not yet, but almost. The baby is coming, and there's no turning back now. The room changes, not literally. The same cracked walls, the same low fire crackling in the hearth, but in feel, in tension, in heat. The air thickens, breaths shorten. Everything sharpens around you until even the smallest things are too loud. The drip of water from a ladle, the creak of the birthing stool beneath you, the rustle of someone adjusting the linens behind your back. It's as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting to see if you'll make it through the next hour with your body and your soul intact. Magda crouches between your knees, hands poised like a hunter's, calm but alert. Her voice stays level, steady as a drumbeat. This is the part where it feels like you'll break in two, she says. You won't, unless you do, but even then, you keep going. Her smile isn't cruel, it's just honest. She's not here to comfort you. She's here to keep you alive. Someone scatters salt on the floor around your stool. It's not for cleanliness, it's for protection. Salt keeps evil at bay, they say. Keeps spirits from circling your feet while your soul's too distracted to notice. You don't question it. You're too deep now to doubt anything. A woman behind you, Ellen maybe, holds a leather strap to your mouth. Bite, she says. Don't scream too loud. It invites death. You don't ask her to explain. You take the leather between your teeth and clamp down as the next contraction hits. It's not like the ones before. This one rips through you like lightning through wood. It makes your spine arch, makes the world narrow to a single blinding point. You cry out, a guttural sound from deep in your gut. There's no control left, no dignity. You don't care. Magda's voice cuts through the haze. It's coming. The head's there. You want to meet it? Push. You shake your head, then nod, then shake again. No part of your body knows what it wants anymore. There's a shift, and then, God help you, There's burning, not heat. A stretch so sharp it sears. You scream, and someone throws cold water on your face, maybe to keep you from fainting. You gasp and bear down again. People talk about the ring of fire. They weren't kidding. It's not a ring. It's a crown of flame and knives. You swear you feel your skin tear, though no one says anything. Maybe they're sparing you. Maybe you're imagining it. Then, suddenly sickeningly, pressure gives way to absence. A weight slips free. There's a strange wet sound, like meat hitting the ground. And then a silence so sharp you think you've gone deaf. No cry, not at first. You freeze. Then Magda lifts something into the air, slick, red, curled in on itself, and you realise it's your baby. It doesn't move. No one breathes. You're shaking. You try to sit up, but someone holds your shoulders. Magda brings the baby to her chest, rubs its back, blows into its face, then mutters a word you don't recognise. You hear slapping, then more rubbing, then finally, a sound. A shriek, small, wet, angry. The room exhales all at once. The baby is here, alive, not silent, not still. You sob, not because it hurts, because the hurt was something you could fight, this question mark. This is relief so massive it crushes you. Magda swaddles the baby in the clean cloth you've saved for weeks and lays it on your chest. You look down and see, not a face exactly, just a squished, red, furious thing with 2 fists and 1 wide mouth. It's perfect. It's a girl, someone says behind you. You don't care. You would have loved a frog if it cried and lived. She smells like blood and iron and heat. You wrap your arms around her and cry harder than you ever have before. Magda presses her hands to your belly. Placenta's still in, she says. We're not done yet. You'd almost forgotten. Here's the part no one talks about. After the baby comes the rest. The afterbirth. The final curtain call of your organs. You feel another contraction. Smaller. Duller. But still real. Magda coaxes gently. You push again. Weakly. Something soft and wet slips out of you. You don't even look. She inspects it, then nods. Whole, she says. That's good. Someone wraps your legs. Someone else wipes your forehead. You drift, in and out. The pain is distant now, like thunder rolling off. Quirky medieval detail. Many believe the placenta was the baby's twin, its spiritual double. Some insisted it should be buried under the hearth to keep the child safe. Others said to burn it, or hang it from a tree. You don't ask what they plan to do with yours. You're too tired. Someone will handle it. Someone always does. Outside, the sky has changed. It's dusk now, or nearly. The window shows a band of gold behind the trees. The rain has stopped. You look at your daughter. Her eyes are closed, her fists still clenched. Magda presses a warm cloth between your legs. You hiss. Tore a little, she says. Not bad. We'll poultice it. Maybe even stitch if you can stand it. You nod, barely. Your mother appears beside you with broth. You don't remember her coming in. You sip. It tastes like life. Someone hangs a ribbon above the door, red and white. A sign to the village. A baby has been born. A mother has survived. The labour is over. You are whole. Barely. But whole. They lay her in a cradle no bigger than a wash basin, swaddled so tightly she can't move an inch. Just a squirming lump of blankets with a face. Her cries have softened to hiccups now, small and sputtering, like she's already tired of being alive. You understand the feeling. Your entire body feels like a torn field after battle. Everything inside aches in places you didn't know existed. Thighs, ribs, fingers, even your jaw from all the clenching. Your stomach is still distended, soft and hollow at once. You'd thought the baby coming out would mean some kind of end, but instead it's a beginning. Of bleeding, of bruising, of burning when you try to sit. The room has gone quiet, finally. Just a few women still linger, folding cloths, whispering. Near the fire, Magda crouches over the blood-soaked linens, muttering something about soaking them in lye. She looks tired, which is unsettling. You've never seen her look tired. There's blood under her fingernails and her sleeves are damp. But she meets your gaze with a firm nod. You did well, she says. That's the closest thing to praise you'll get. And it's enough. The baby's eyes open for the first time. Grey-blue, unfocused, like the sky just before a storm. She doesn't cry again, just watches, as if deciding whether this world is worth the trouble. You whisper her name aloud for the first time, the one you picked after Magda told you to choose something in case your soul needed calling back. You say it now not for yourself, but for her, to anchor her here, to tie her down with syllables. It's a name that belonged to your grandmother. Simple, strong, a name that survived famine and fire. You hope she will too. But then comes the part no one ever describes in detail. The aftermath. The bleeding. It doesn't stop. Not right away. There's a gush when you stand, more when you sit, and you feel it with every move, warm and slick and terrifying. You whisper to Magda, voice hoarse, "Is it too much?" She lifts the sheet, checks, presses her hand hard into your belly. You cry out from the pressure. She doesn't stop. "It's more than I like," she says, "but you're not dying, yet." You almost laugh. Almost. She rubs herbs into a poultice and lays it over your pelvis. It stinks, sour and spicy like vinegar left in the sun. But you don't argue. You'd bathe in pig dung if it would make the pain ease. The baby doesn't feed, not yet. She latches for a moment, then wails, then falls asleep. Your breasts are sore already, hot and tender, but they're not full, not yet. Magda says it takes time, that your milk must rise. You picture it bubbling up like water in a spring, though it feels more like it's locked behind stone. Your mother tells you not to worry. Some babies don't suck until the 3rd day. She says this like it's common. You wonder how many babies never made it past day 2. Then someone mentions the word that freezes your blood. Stillbirth. Not about your daughter, but about another woman, years ago. The way the baby came silent, limp, too small. They buried it in the churchyard, but not in consecrated ground, just near the edge under the elder tree, because unbaptized children weren't permitted near the other graves. Limbo, someone whispers. You know the word. A place not hell, but not heaven either. A waiting room for souls that never got their chance. And suddenly you feel sick. Because what if yours had been quiet? What if her cry had never come? Would they have taken her from your arms and tucked her under the tree like a secret? Would you be expected to just accept it? Here's a bitter truth of the medieval world. Infants die. Often. Too often. For every child. Who survives? There's another who doesn't. Fever, starvation, infection, bad luck. No one says it kindly. They just call it God's will. Stillbirths are common, and terrifying, and poorly understood. Some blame the mother. Most, actually. She must have eaten something cursed, thought impure thoughts, failed to light the right candle, or she dreamed of teeth instead of flowers, or she cried too much, or not enough. The rules are endless, and cruel. Magda at least doesn't indulge the blame. Sometimes the baby's just not built to stay, she says. Sometimes the cord's too tight, or the blood turns, or the stars say no. Her shrug is heavy. We do what we can, but we're not gods. You hold your baby tighter. She makes a sound, not a cry this time, but a soft grunt like she's trying to clear her throat. You stroke her cheek. She blinks once, then falls asleep again. You pray, quietly, without words, that she'll still be breathing in the morning. A quirky little belief floats back to you, one Ellen told you weeks ago, when she brought you those dried plums, that babies born at dusk grow up with secrets, that they live between worlds. You wonder if it's true, you wonder if your daughter will be strange, you wonder if that's a bad thing. Outside the rain starts again, a slow, steady patter on the roof. Inside the fire has died down, but the warmth lingers. You've been changed in every way, not just your body, not just your name, now spoken with a mother at the end, but your soul. It feels stretched, thin and humming, like a harp string wound too tight. You close your eyes for a moment, just long enough to rest, but sleep doesn't come. Instead, you lie there, listening, to the baby's breath, to the sound of your blood moving, to the quiet creak of the house settling around your new reality. Magda's gone by morning, just like that. No goodbye, no fanfare. Only a scrap of cloth left folded on the stool, stained and still warm. The bleeding slows, but it doesn't stop. You're sore, you're bruised, you're alive, and she is too. By the second morning the church gets involved. You haven't left your bed, haven't even stood without someone bracing your elbow, but already the whispers are circling from pew to pulpit. Has the baby been baptized? Has she been named in the sight of God? Have you confessed? Have you been cleansed? They mean well, probably, but their questions don't sound like concern. They sound like warnings. You lie under blankets that still smell of sweat and afterbirth, cradling your daughter to your chest, half asleep, half conscious, and a full priest is standing in your doorway. His robe smells of incense and wet wool. He doesn't step inside, just lingers, eyes darting toward the floor like being too close to your unwashed post-birth body might curse him, or worse, tempt him. God be with you, he says. And also, you croak, but the words come out broken. Your throat is raw. Your whole being is raw. He clears his throat. We heard the child lives. He says it like he's surprised. You nod. She cries well. Then she must be baptized soon, he says. The soul should not linger unmarked. The devil lurks close to newborns. You don't have the strength to argue, and even if you did, you wouldn't risk it. Because here, in this age, baptism isn't optional. It's salvation. It's protection. If a baby dies without it, she is denied heaven. There's no comforting narrative of innocence to paradise. No divine loophole. An unbaptized child, according to the church, is cast out, left in limbo between realms without grace. You've heard stories. A baby born healthy but gasping, unable to cry, dying before the priest could arrive. The mother tried to baptize him herself, whispering Latin the best she could remember, wetting his forehead with wine. She was punished, not just shamed, punished. Because baptism is not a woman's place. That's one of the cruelties of this world. The mother carries, births, feeds, comforts, but it's the priest who gets to welcome the child into the eyes of God. Still, you nod. Soon, you say. She's sleeping. He frowns. Don't wait too long. The soul must not linger. And then he's gone, trailing cold air behind him. Your mother helps you dress the baby that afternoon in a tiny shift sewn months ago. It still smells faintly of rosemary from when it was stored between sachets to keep the moths away. Your daughter squirms, fussy and pink. You coo to her gently, but your voice is shaky, your body weak. When you try to sit up fully, something tears, inside or out you can't tell, and you nearly drop her. Ellen catches the baby, presses her close and whispers, "Let me carry her." And so your daughter is taken to the church without you. You lie in bed, empty arms folded across your chest, listening to the silence. It's unbearable. In wealthier homes, women might have a private baptism performed bedside, but you're not wealthy. You're village stock. There's a basin at the front of the church, and that's where your child is taken, while you bleed and ache and pray that nothing happens before the water touches her brow. Hours pass, or maybe just one. When Ellen returns, she brings the child wrapped in new linens. "It's done," she says. Father Edrig said the words. She's named you Smile, but it's weak, hollow. You ask, "Did she cry?" Ellen nods, loud as any bell. Good. She needs a loud voice in this world. That night your dreams are odd. The baby lies in your arms, but her eyes glow like candles. You walk through the church, barefoot and bleeding, and everyone turns away. The priest holds out a bowl of water, but it's full of thorns. You wake sweating, panicked, unsure if the dream was warning or just your mind unravelling. The next morning another priest arrives. Younger this, time, less wary. He kneels by your bed and murmurs that you must confess. Childbirth is sacred, he says, but suffering cannot purify alone. He means sin, your body. He means Eve. You confess, mostly to get it over with. You list your impatience, your sharp tongue, your thoughts about running away last winter when you feared you were barren. You mention the time you wanted to throw a bucket at your husband's head. The priest nods solemnly. It is natural, he says. You must still repent. Then comes the second half, purification. Here's where the church steps in, like it always does, to make sure you don't forget what brought you to this bleeding bed in the first place. Original sin. In the church's eyes, childbirth renders you unclean, not just physically, spiritually. You've passed through blood and pain, and now you must be restored. Before you can take communion again, before you can enter the church proper, before you can hold your child near the altar. This process is called churching, a 40-day wait, then a ceremony, a prayer of thanks that you survived, and of forgiveness for having birthed at all. Some women refuse it quietly, others welcome it, desperate to be seen as whole again. You don't know how you feel about it yet. You only know that your body is still split, still bleeding. and the idea of walking, let alone kneeling before a priest, feels like being asked to walk on glass. There's a scholarly debate about how deeply women internalized this. Did they truly believe themselves defiled, or did they simply go along with it to maintain peace? Records suggest both. Some saw churching as humiliation, others saw it as survival, another hoop to jump through in a life of endless jumping. Your daughter cries softly beside you. You lift her, wincing at the pain, and rest her against your shoulder. She's small but fierce, strong. She clings like she knows what she almost lost. You whisper to her, not a prayer this time, but a promise. You're not born in sin, you're born in strength. The church can wait. The bleeding slows finally, but not the dizziness. It rises without warning when you stand, when you stretch, even when you sit up too fast. The world tilts sideways like an uneven cartwheel, and you have to grab for something solid. Your body's drained, emptied, a wineskin wrung dry. You knew childbirth would take something from you. You just didn't realise how much it would refuse to give back. Every muscle aches, but it's a quiet ache now, like bruises sinking into the fabric of you. Your abdomen feels like a sack of wet grain. Your joints crack every time you shift. There's a strange tingling in your fingers. You can't tell if it's the blood loss or something deeper, something more permanent. You sit on a bundle of rags that have to be changed constantly. They're soaked through by midday. Your mother hands them to you in silence, her face unreadable. No one tells you just how much blood you'll lose. They warn you about the pain, the effort, but not the aftermath, not the sheer physical unravelling of yourself. Magda mentioned it once, casually, as if it were the price of admission. You'll feel hollow, she said, and then you'll start to fill again. You're still waiting. The baby sleeps more than you expected, sometimes too long. When she does stir, it's with little flailing fists and a frown that seems much too serious for someone who's only just arrived. Her cheeks are pink now, not red. Her skin no longer shines with that slick, otherworldly film. She's becoming human, earthbound, yours. But she won't feed. You've tried everything. Different positions, different times, a warm compress, a drop of milk rubbed on your nipple to tempt her. Nothing works. She roots a little, mouth open, eyes squinting, then pulls away and wails. You hold her close and cry with her. The women offer advice, all of it conflicting. She's too hot, unwrap her. She's too cold, wrap her tighter. She's hungry, feed her now. She's too full, give her time. Agnes brings a potion of fennel and goat's milk, thick and lukewarm, meant to bring your milk in. She warns you not to take too much. It can make you leak for days, but you're desperate. You drink it all in one go. It tastes like bitter hay. You keep it down, barely. Still, nothing. And then someone mentions the word you've been dreading. Wet nurse. In the village, it's rare. Wet nurses are more common in noble houses, where the mother is too precious to risk her health or deform her breasts. Here, you feed your own child unless you're dead or dying. But sometimes, a neighbour offers, there's another option. My cousin just gave birth, she says. Her milk's come in strong. The babe died 2 nights ago. You blink. Her voice is casual, like she's discussing bread. You ask no questions, just nod. The cousin arrives before nightfall. She's pale, eyes sunken, hair tied back in a tight, angry knot. She doesn't look at you, just takes the baby, unlaces her bodice and offers a breast. Your daughter latches immediately, as if she'd been waiting for this mouth, this scent, this shape. You feel an emotion you can't name. Relief, maybe, but also shame, also grief. You watch the woman hold your baby like she's glass. You watch your daughter suckle from another chest, another heartbeat. You wonder what she lost. You wonder if she sees her dead child in your living one. When the feeding's over, she hands her back without a word. Her fingers are shaking. She leaves without looking back. You don't know if you'll see her again. That night you bleed more than usual. You wake in the dark with a soaked cloth between your legs and a buzzing in your ears. You can't sit up. You call out once, then again. Finally your mother rushes in, candle in hand, and gasps. You see her mouth form the word, Magda, and then everything goes dim. Later, you wake to a burning sensation between your legs and the familiar smell of herbs. Mugwort, comfrey, lavender. Magda's voice is low, muttering in time with the rhythm of her hands. She's pressing a cloth to your belly, holding it there like she's trying to stop the world from splitting open. You cry out. She doesn't stop. "You're not done bleeding," she says, "and the afterbirth left too fast. I warned you." You try to speak. Nothing comes out. She gives you a bitter drink, darker than anything she's given before. "To make the womb close," she says, "and to keep your spirit from leaking out with the blood." You drink. It tastes like smoke and metal. Quirky fact. In some regions, they believed a womb that didn't close properly could float freely inside the body. A wandering womb. It would press on your heart, your liver, even your brain, causing madness, hysteria, or death. No one wants a mad mother. No one wants a ghost either. They want you alive, just barely. You stay in bed for days. Women come and go like bees, bringing broth, warm bricks for your feet, prayers whispered under their breath. Your husband stays away mostly. You're not sure if it's fear or uselessness. Either way, you don't miss him. Your daughter feeds now, though not from you. The wet nurse returns each morning silent as a shadow. She never asks for thanks. You offer bread once. She takes it with shaking hands. You grow stronger slowly. The dizziness ebbs. The bleeding lessens. Your breasts ache constantly. Your belly sags. Your mind drifts. But the baby is alive. She coos now. Her fists uncurl. Her eyes focus. She is the centre of the room. The reason for the whispers, the offerings, the prayers. You're an afterthought. A vessel recovering from its own use. And yet, when she's placed in your arms, warm and heavy, eyes shut and breath steady, you feel something return. Not strength. Not yet. But solidity. Like a stone dropped back into your belly. She is yours. And you are still here. 40 days. That's what they tell you. 40 days until you are whole again. Until your body is no longer unclean. Until you're allowed to walk into a church without whispers following you to the pew. Until the holy water doesn't sizzle when it touches your skin. Or so the joke goes, though no one laughs. You've bled, suffered, swelled, torn, and lived. And still, you're considered unfit to stand near the altar. The rules are clear. For 6 weeks after giving birth, you're forbidden from touching sacred things. No communion, no tithes, no stepping inside the sanctuary. You've crossed the veil between life and death, they say. You've leaked blood and brought forth flesh. You've brushed too close to the divine and the damned. And now you must be purified. As if the work of surviving wasn't enough. You stay home. You don't argue. Not because you believe it, but because you're too tired to explain that you don't. Besides, the idea of dragging your bruised, leaking body across the village to kneel at the altar just to be declared spiritually safe again. That sounds like a punishment, not a rite. You spend most days tucked near the hearth, your daughter in your arms or wrapped to your chest in a sling of linen that smells faintly of milk and rosemary. Her weight is new, solid. When she sleeps, you press your lips to her head and listen for the steady rhythm of her breath. You find yourself checking her often, panicking when she's too quiet, too still. Once you wake from a nap with your arm across her belly and cry for 5 straight minutes, convinced you've smothered her. She blinks, frowns, then falls back asleep, unbothered. But you stay awake the rest of the night. The bleeding has slowed to a trickle. Your body is still tender, but you can walk again without bracing on every wall. You manage short trips outside, fetching water from the well when the weather is clear, gathering herbs with Agnes when she lets you. The sun feels alien on your skin. The world moved on without you. People pass and offer half smiles, wary praise, the occasional "God spared you both." No one touches you, not yet. And then, on the 40th day, your mother comes in before sunrise with a wrapped bundle of cloth and a bowl of warm water. "Time to prepare," she says, without looking you in the eye. You know what she means. It's time for churching. The rite is simple, in theory. You dress in your cleanest shift, white, if you have it, and bring the baby to the church. You wait at the threshold until the priest comes to meet you. He leads you in, murmurs a few prayers, sprinkles holy water over your bowed head, and gives thanks for your survival. You are welcomed back, as if your body has been a crime scene that now, finally, has been cleared. You do as you're told. You wash, you braid your hair, you lace your bodice tighter than you have in weeks. The baby is fed and swaddled in a new linen cloth embroidered with clumsy red thread. You pin a charm to her wrap, a stitched eye meant to guard against envy, just in case. When you reach the church, you stop at the steps. You wait. Father Edrig appears, dressed in his red vestments, his face unreadable. He doesn't smile, he doesn't scowl, just nods once, then begins. His Latin floats over you in gentle waves, words you don't understand but have heard enough times to recognise the rhythm. There's something almost soothing in it. He prays for your health, for your child's strength, for your sins to be washed away. You flinch at that part, not because you're guilty, but because of what it implies. That bringing life into the world is still, somehow, a thing to be forgiven. He sprinkles holy water across your shoulders, your forehead, the crown of your child's head. The droplets sting where they land, cold, jarring, real. You resist the urge to wipe them away. Then he leads you inside. For the first time in over a month you step past the wooden doors, past the incense-scented gloom, past the glances of villagers who haven't seen you since you vanished behind birth's curtain. You walk slowly, proudly. You're here, you're back. You kneel, your knees protest, your stitches twinge, the baby stirs, and then it's done. You're allowed again. Back among the living, back among the saved, but something in you doesn't feel quite returned. Quirky fact. In some traditions, churching included a candle lit by the mother, a symbol of light restored. In others, a loaf of bread and a small coin were offered to the priest. You give both. Bread you baked the night before, coin from your husband's pouch. The priest takes them with a nod. Not thanks. Outside, the sky is soft with afternoon haze. You walk home slowly, the baby squinting against the light, your body stiff but upright. Neighbours nod, some smile, a few whisper. One woman says, "Now she's clean," and you feel your cheeks burn because you were never dirty to begin with. There's a scholarly debate about the purpose of churching. Was it a form of forced reintegration, a patriarchal leash, or was it something women secretly reclaimed? A moment of acknowledgement in a world that rarely saw them. The answer might be yes to all of it. For you, it was neither punishment nor blessing, just another threshold to cross, another doorway, another thing to survive. At home, you unpin the charm from your daughter's cloth and tuck it into the corner of her cradle. She stares up at you, mouth open in that soft, dreamy way. You smile. You don't need their blessing, you whisper. You have mine. A week after your churching, the baby begins to cry with a new intensity. Not hunger, not wetness. Something deeper, something that cracks the air. Her tiny fists curl, her face turns red, and the scream pierces so sharply it makes your chest ache in places your ribs can't explain. You try everything. Feeding, rocking, humming, walking circles through the cottage until your knees throb. Nothing helps. She cries and cries until her voice raspens and your arms feel numb from holding her. The next morning someone mentions wet nurses again, but this time not as a backup plan. For some, they're the preferred option. You've done your part, one woman tells you, as if breastfeeding were optional, a suggestion more than a necessity. Let someone else take the burden. Save your strength. You need to keep your blood. She says it so casually, like blood is a currency you're meant to hoard. You glance down at your daughter, red-faced and wailing, and wonder if you're failing her. Your milk's come in now, finally, but she still struggles to latch. Your breasts are heavy, sore and leaking constantly, soaking through your dress before noon. You wrap cloth tight around them and press warm rags to ease the swelling, but the pain returns the minute you exhale. The village midwives offer advice again. One tells you to soak your nipples in vinegar, another swears by goose fat. A third insists the milk must be cursed that someone's laid a bad eye on you. She offers a charm made of nettle and charcoal. You hang it, even though you don't believe it. Still, nothing works. Your husband says you should hire someone, as if it's a simple transaction. But you both know you can't afford it. Not long term. Wet nurses don't work for eggs and gossip. They work for bread, meat, wool, and even then you're supposed to give them your child for weeks at a time, to live in their home, to sleep in their bed. The very thought of handing your daughter off to someone else's breast, someone else's lullabies, makes your heart knot. But some women have no choice. The noble women, of course. They don't even consider feeding their own. It's beneath them. Too animal, they say. They pass the baby off to a young nurse with strong arms and reliable milk, and then go back to embroidery and evening prayers. Wet nursing is considered a step above servitude, but not by much. A good one is kept close, praised when the baby grows fat and quiet. A bad one, discarded. Or worse, blamed if the child sickens. Quirky fact, in some households wet nurses were required to follow strict diets. No garlic, no onions, no beans, nothing bitter. Their milk had to be pure, sweet, gentle. They weren't allowed sex, loud music, or bad dreams. Yes, bad dreams. Because everything in her affected the baby, according to the law. One dream about wolves, and suddenly your milk could spoil a child's bones. In your village, there are only a few women whose milk has come in and stayed. One, a widow who lost her twins last winter, is rumoured to still lactate. She's strange, quiet, lives at the edge of the wood. People say she talks to trees, but you've seen her cradle a neighbour's newborn like it was her own. She charges nothing, only asks to be treated kindly. You think about it for 3 days. Then one morning, with the baby crying for hours straight and your breast so engorged you're feverish, you walk to her door. She lets you in without a word. Her house smells like rosemary and ash. She takes the baby, undresses her gently, and holds her close. The baby latches instantly. The suckling is quiet, rhythmic, like breathing. You cry, right there, in the doorway. She doesn't speak, just rocks. Later she hands your daughter back and says, "Come again tomorrow if you like." You do. The feeding becomes a ritual. You bring broth and berries as thanks. She refuses at first, then relents. Your daughter grows calmer, pinker, heavier. Her legs get fat rolls. Her cries lose their sharpness. You feel something like peace settle in your gut. But not everyone approves. Someone stops you at the well and says, "You've handed your soul's tether to a woman who talks to the wind." You ignore her. Another says your baby will smell of the wrong milk, that the essence of a child is shaped by the breast that feeds it. You ignore her too. But at night, when you lie awake, you can't help but wonder, will she remember? Will she know you weren't enough? Scholars still argue about this, about whether medieval women saw wet nursing as betrayal or salvation. For some, it was the only way to keep a child alive. For others, it was a surrender, a quiet admission of failure. You don't know what it is for you, only that when your daughter drinks, her eyes flutter with calm, and when she finishes, she reaches for you. Still, always. Magda visits again, unannounced. She takes one look at your swollen chest and grunts. "You've been holding too much," she says. She kneads your breast with strong, cruel fingers until milk spurts onto the cloth you've laid beneath. You bite your lip until you taste blood. She doesn't stop. When it's done, you feel lighter, emptier, grateful somehow. "You'll feed her soon," she says. "Bodies catch up, even yours." And she's right. 3 days later, your daughter latches. It's awkward, painful. But she stays, she drinks, and afterward she falls asleep with her mouth still open, cheek pressed against your skin. You cry again, quietly this time. The widow down the path smiles when you tell her. "They choose who they need," she says, "not always who you expect." You keep nursing, you keep bleeding a little, you keep listening to your daughter's breath in the dark. And when she stirs, rooting, hungry, you lift her with both hands, steady now, and feed her yourself. The first time you walk to the village square carrying your daughter, people stare. Not rudely, at least not all of them, but with a quiet calculation, the way one might look at a field after a storm, trying to guess what's been lost and what might still grow. You feel their eyes on your back, on the baby's head, on your stomach, which is still rounded under your dress, not with life now, but with the softness of what's left behind. You walk slowly, carefully, your knees still a little loose, your ankles still swelling by midday, and your steps still lined with that barely hidden limp that reminds everyone, you've just done something that kills 1 in 3 women like you. The mortality stories never stop. You hear them like wind moving between houses, whispered at the well, during bread making, passed between cousins. So-and-so died after her 3rd, another bled out in a cart on the way to her sister's. One woman in the next town over delivered twins and was never seen again. The baby survived, though. Just one. That part's always tacked on at the end like a consolation prize. No one says it outright, but it's understood. The more children you have, the closer death gets. Not metaphorically, literally. Like he's moving up a line, counting down, sharpening his blade, By the 6th or 7th pregnancy, most women have seen it happen up close. A sister, a neighbour, a version of themselves they're too afraid to name. Your mother had 5, 3 lived. 1 bled out on a cold morning like this one. She tells you, matter-of-factly, that she saw her own death coming on the 4th. Says she saw a blackbird land on the thatch the night before and it didn't fly away. I told myself I wouldn't scream, she says. That way I wouldn't frighten the baby. But it hurt so much I forgot. Then she stirs the stew and says no more. You try not to think about what number you're on. 1, technically. 1, living. 1, buried. You never named the first. It wasn't custom to. But you think about them still, in the quiet moments. You wonder if your body remembers, if it's keeping score somewhere under your skin. The other mothers talk openly about their tally. My 2nd nearly killed me, one says. The 4th came too fast, I wasn't even ready. My 6th, oh, that was a miracle, breech but quick. They speak of near death like it's a kind of badge, passed between hands with pride and warning. Their voices carry both fear and defiance, like they know they're tempting fate just by surviving. And then there are the women who stop talking, the ones who don't return to the square, the ones whose houses grow quiet, whose windows stay shuttered. They're spoken of only in past tense. She was strong, people say, too young, too thin, too proud, too unlucky. Anything but just like us. You pass one such house on your way home. The shutters are drawn, the thatch a little too neat, like someone cleaned it out of obligation. You know what happened inside. Everyone does. You hold your daughter a little tighter. There's a running belief that the number of births you survive is tied to your worthiness. Not medically, but spiritually. Surviving 5 means you're blessed. Surviving 7 makes you touched by the divine. Dying after your 8th, that's just natural. The body has its limit, Agnes says. The soul doesn't, though. She visits again that evening, takes your pulse, checks the colour in your nails, presses your belly with firm, practised hands. You'll heal, she says. Might be able to try again by winter. You feel your stomach twist. Try again? You're not ready to think about now, let alone another future body inside yours. She leaves behind a wrapped cloth of herbs to help your womb settle. You tuck it into the drawer and pretend you won't forget it. Here's the thing no one really tells you. After the 1st, you're never unpregnant. Not really. Even when your belly is flat again. Even when the bleeding stops. Even when your milk dries. The body remembers. It marks the paths, traces the scars. Your hips never quite return. Your back is never fully yours again. The ghosts of birth stay in your spine, your knees, your dreams. Some women keep going. Not because they want to, because they have to. Because the land needs sons. Because husbands expect heirs. Because the graveyard waits with an open spot and they hope, just hope, it won't be theirs this time. A quirky belief floats through your memory, one you heard as a child, that every baby born leaves behind a shadow in the mother's womb, a little echo. If too many echoes build up, the womb forgets how to hold anything real. It tips, wanders, grows bitter. Agnes once said it with a wink. You didn't laugh. Your daughter wakes in the night, wailing with that new sharp cry. You hold her, rock her, feed her until she falls back asleep against your chest. Her breath tickles your collarbone. You stare at the ceiling and think about women you've never met. Ones buried with babies still inside them. Ones who bled out before they even got to name their child. Ones who survived, again and again, wondering each time if it would be the last. You're one of them now. You belong to that quiet, bloody sisterhood that keeps the world moving. You love your daughter, fiercely, completely. And yet there's fear in that love. Not of her, but of what having her has made of you. You're no longer invincible. You're known now to the gods who keep score, and they're watching. The first time you have to leave her for more than an hour, you nearly lose your mind. It's just a walk to the far field to gather herbs with Agnes, she insisted. Said you needed the air, said it was good for your blood. You almost said no, almost snapped, my blood's already left. What's left in me now is just smoke and sleep. But you didn't. You put on your boots, kissed the baby's downy head, and left her sleeping in the cradle under your mother's eye. You don't even get past the edge of the rye before your chest starts to ache. Not just the milk let down, though that comes too, sudden and hot, but a real, clawing anxiety that crawls into your lungs and settles behind your ribs. Your eyes sting. Your hands twitch. You keep looking back, as if you'll see your house burning or hear her crying from this far away. Agnes notices. Of course she does. She's safe, she says, slicing a stalk of angelica clean with her knife. Babies cry, grandmothers hush, you breathe. You try. The air smells like crushed grass and garlic. You breathe it in like medicine. Agnes tosses another root into her satchel and stands. The first child splits you, she says. Not just your skin, yourself. There's the part that stays home with her, and the part that keeps going. She gestures toward the forest path. This is the part that keeps going. You nod, but it doesn't feel like two parts. It feels like one giant wound that walks and talks and remembers to pick herbs. By the time you return, the baby's still asleep. Your mother hands her over without comment, though her eyes linger on your face a little too long, like she's checking to see if you've changed. You probably have. That night the baby gurgles in her sleep and your heart jolts like someone's thrown cold water on it. You lie awake for hours, waiting for the next breath, the next twitch, the next sound. You think about those terrible tales, mothers waking to find the baby cold, blue, still. No sound, no warning, just silence. They call it crib death, though the crib isn't always involved. No one knows why it happens. Some say it's fairies stealing them back. Others whisper about curses or evil eyes or bad dreams that tug the baby's spirit from its body. You make charms just in case. A knot of red thread tucked under her blanket. A thistle head dried and tied above the cradle. A tiny iron nail buried beneath the floorboards. You don't care if it's superstition. You'd wear a crown of garlic if someone told you it would keep her breathing. A quirky fact you remember from Magda. Some midwives swore that newborns could see spirits for the first 7 nights. That their gaze would follow things invisible to the rest of us. That if they smiled at a shadow, or cried when no one was there, it meant something had come to visit. You've seen her eyes flick to corners, widen at empty space. You don't ask what she sees. You start sleeping in shifts. 3 hours here, 1 there, whenever she lets you. Your dreams get strange. Once, you dream you're holding her, only to look down and see your arms are full of feathers. Another time, you're in a field of wheat, calling her name, but your mouth makes no sound. Your husband begins to return to his routines, working the field, trading grain for salt, repairing the fence. He kisses you in passing, but never asks how your body feels, never notices the way you walk with care, the way your knees still tremble when you stand too fast. You don't fault him for it. He's been taught that surviving means finished. The truth? You're not finished. Not by half. There's a quiet war inside your body still. Your womb contracts at strange times. Your breasts leak without warning. Sometimes your hips ache like they're being pried open all over again. And always the bleeding, though less now, is still there. A soft reminder that healing isn't instant. That rebirth costs more than just the blood it takes to get through labour. You begin to notice your daughter's patterns. The way she curls her lip when she's about to sneeze. The tiny snore that rattles in her nose when she's too full to burp. Her cries are no longer alarming. They're codes. You begin to answer them like a soldier who's memorized the battle plan. One night she coughs, just once, and your heart stops. You lift her, check her mouth, her breath, her colour. She's fine. Just startle herself. But you hold her for hours after, your fingers cramping, your neck sore because putting her down suddenly feels like a betrayal. You ask Agnes, when will I stop being afraid? She doesn't answer right away. Then she says, when they're grown and gone. And even then, sometimes never. You think about that. Think about fear as a permanent fixture, a companion walking beside you for the rest of your life. Not sharp, not always, but steady. A candle that never quite goes out. By the end of the month, your daughter smiles for the first time. Not the fluttery gas expressions from before, but a real intentional twist of her mouth, her eyes creased, her whole face lit from the inside. It hits you like thunder. Not just because it's beautiful, but because for a moment you forget everything else. The fear, the pain, the sleepless nights, the bleeding, none of it matters. Just her. Just that crooked little smile, gummy and pure. You laugh for the first time in weeks, and when she laughs back, tiny, gurgling, surprised, you cry too, because you realise something then. something quiet and terrifying. This is only the beginning. The seasons begin to turn, and with them so do you. The aches dull. The bleeding finally stops. Your belly, though still soft and stretched, begins to firm up as you move more each day. The cradle isn't always at your side now. Sometimes your daughter sleeps long enough that you can make bread, hang laundry, even walk the edge of the woods with a basket in your thoughts. These are small victories, but they feel like resurrection. But with every gain comes a new expectation. The midwives have stopped checking in. The neighbours assume you're healed. Even your husband begins to look at you differently, less like someone recovering, more like someone returning. He places his hand on your back one morning, not out of comfort but suggestion. The kind of touch that means, soon, we'll try again. Your stomach clenches. Your body's healed, yes, but not repaired, not ready. Your mind less so. And yet you know how this works. You don't control when the next baby comes. You never did. So you begin tracking yourself, the way women do when they're scared, not of pregnancy, but of too much pregnancy. You count the days after your bleeding stops, mark each cramp, each small symptom. Your mother teaches you the herb lore she kept tucked away for such times. Pennyroyal, for keeping the womb closed. Rue, for urging it open if it ever should go wrong. You learn to drink your teas slowly, without flinching, without anyone noticing. You aren't planning, you're surviving. No one says it aloud, but you know many women keep these tools hidden in the folds of their skirts. Not because they don't want more children, but because they want to stay alive long enough to raise the ones they already have. There's no word for that in your village, no morality speech from the pulpit, no law written in the Lord's book, just whispered recipes and nods passed in the shadows. The law turns a blind eye when it suits them. There's a darker story, though, that keeps women from being too bold. You hear it in the bakery of all places. Two older women whispering while shaping dough. A girl from another village who bled out after drinking too much of the wrong root. She'd had 2 babies already. The third died inside her. She couldn't bear a fourth. The midwife who gave her the mixture was whipped. Publicly. The girl? Buried in a shallow grave outside the church fence. No cross. Just a pile of stones. You don't ask if the story is true. You just let it settle into the back of your mind where all the warnings live. Your daughter, meanwhile, begins to laugh in earnest now. Her face lights up when you enter a room. Her hands grab for things with purpose, especially your hair. She's real in a way she wasn't before. Awake. Here. Sometimes when you look at her, your chest swells with such unbearable love it makes you dizzy. Other times when she cries and nothing soothes her, you have to place her gently down and walk outside barefoot into the night air just to breathe. You've never known love and fear could share the same skin like this. Your nights remain fractured. She wakes every few hours, hungry, confused, cold. You feed her while half asleep, your body now so trained it lets down milk before your brain catches up. The pain is mostly gone. Sometimes there's tenderness, a cracked spot, a knot, but you manage it. You whisper to her in the dark, soft nonsense songs about geese and bread and clouds. She listens. Not because she understands, but because your voice is the first place she ever lived. Your husband says little about your distance. He's not cruel, just practical. He waits, offers you meat at dinner, asks once if you're well enough. You nod, but he doesn't push. Men know better than to force a woman who's still bleeding, even metaphorically. But there's another man in the village who doesn't follow that rule. You hear about it at the well. Again, always the well. A girl, 15, pregnant before her first blood ever came. Not married, not even betrothed. The man was older, already with a wife. The girl never named him outright. But the bruises said enough. She now walks with her eyes low, belly hidden under too many layers. No one will marry her now, they say. She'll be lucky to survive. She won't. You want to scream. But instead you just hold your daughter tighter and wonder how she'll make it through this world, if she even makes it to girlhood. The village women say, she'll marry strong, she'll bear easy. You want to say, or she won't. And that has to be fine too, but you don't. Because strength here is measured by how many children you birth and survive. Love is a luxury. Autonomy is a myth. You may raise her with care, but you can't shield her from a world that sees her as a vessel before it ever sees her as a person. You think about leaving sometimes, taking your daughter and walking far past the forests into the lands where they say women study plants like scholars and birth in rooms filled with music and light, You doubt such places exist, and even if they do, you'd never make it. The world outside this village is as dangerous as the one within. So you stay, you prepare, you learn more about the herbs, you learn how to watch your cycle, how to understand the tides of your own body. You sew new linens for your daughter's next season. You barter with the widow who nursed her in those early weeks, offering honey and soap for her recipes. You collect charms, boil tinctures, whisper prayers to both saints and shadows, because at this point you'll take protection from anyone who listens. Quirky fact. Some women buried small tokens of themselves, hair, fingernails, or drops of blood under the hearth to bind their children to life. You do it too, quietly. One night when the house is asleep, you press a lock of your own hair and a dab of milk into the soil under the stones, whispering, "Stay alive, stay with me, be safe." Your daughter grows heavier, her head steadier, her eyes bright with mischief. And you? You begin to laugh again, truly laugh. Not because life is easy now, it isn't, but because you've made it through something enormous, because you're still here, and because, against every odd, she is too. The first tooth arrives in the middle of the night like a bandit slipping in through the window. One moment your daughter is dozing peacefully, mouth open and gummy, and the next she's screaming with a fury that startles you out of bed. You fumble to light a candle, still half asleep, and there she is, red-faced, fists clenched, cheeks flushed like fire. You rock her, hush her, bounce her gently, but she only cries harder, biting down on anything she can reach. Your knuckle, the edge of the blanket, her own fingers. You're so sleep-deprived that for a moment you think she's possessed. Maybe something's in her. Maybe this is one of those nights the old stories warned about, when spirits slip in through open windows and make a child scream just to watch the mother unravel. And then you see it. A tiny white nub, sharp and jagged just below her gum line. You laugh. Not with joy. Not exactly. More like relief. Like, oh, it's just a tooth. It's just biology, not demons. Though in the Dark Ages that line gets fuzzy fast. The older women say to rub ash on her gums. Or rabbit's brain, one adds with a shrug, like she's offering a recipe for stew. You thank them politely and ignore the worst advice. Instead, you make a mash of chamomile and honey, rub it along her jaw, and sing the softest nonsense lullabies you can conjure while swaying in the dark. She doesn't stop crying, but she hiccups between sobs now, which feels like progress. Your breasts are sore again more than usual. She's begun biting, not on purpose, just instinctively, and your nipples feel like they've been chewed by wolves. You wince with every latch. You bleed, just a little. The milk lets down anyway, force too stubborn to care about pain. You remember a quirky detail from Magda. Some women used metal nipple shields made from tin or bone carved to protect their skin. Of course, only wealthier women had access to things like that. You make do with cloth and prayers. By morning your arms feel like wet rope. You haven't slept more than 30 minutes at a time. Your husband leaves early to mend fences and doesn't notice the bruise-like circles under your eyes. Your mother tuts but doesn't offer help. She's raised 5. She thinks you're doing fine. Teething passes, she says, and then something else begins. It always does. With each new milestone comes new uncertainty. Now that your daughter can hold her head up, everyone has an opinion. Sit her up, one neighbour says. Lie her flat, says another. She should be crawling soon. Don't let her crawl. Evil spirits travel low to the ground. You don't know what to believe, so you do what you always do. Watch your baby. Follow her lead. Trust the rhythm of her small, determined body. She smiles more now, laughs easily, reaches for your hair, your necklace, the edge of the table. Her grip is strong, so strong it makes your heart lurch. This tiny person, born in blood and screaming, now giggles at her own toes. You find yourself watching her when she sleeps, not out of fear anymore, but awe. She is becoming. You are too. Your body is not the same. Your hips are wider, your belly softer. Your hair sheds in clumps some days, collecting in the brush like fallen leaves. You sweat at night and cry more than you admit, but there's strength there now. Deep in your legs and arms and back. You can carry her without strain. You can kneel without fear of tearing. You've walked through fire and come out. Not unburned, but alive. The other women see it too. You catch it in their glances. Some envy, some respect. A few are pregnant again already. one just buried a newborn. You hug her quietly, say nothing, and press a charm into her hand. A tiny shell, smooth and warm. She grips it like a rope. You begin to notice the way grief and joy sit side by side in motherhood. One breath apart, one heartbeat, one shift in the cradle. You never let yourself love too recklessly, because you know now how easily that love can vanish. But you do love. Fiercely. Completely. You can't help it. You start teaching her your voice. Not words, yet, but rhythms. You hum as you cook, as you wash, as you walk. She babbles back, eyes wide, hands flapping. Her voice is the newest, most beautiful sound in the world. A local priest gives a sermon about obedience and the mother's duty to raise her children in fear of God. You think about that phrase for days. Fear of God. You wonder what it would feel like to raise your daughter in something gentler. Wonder of God, maybe. Or of life. But you say nothing. You nod along. You know how to be quiet when it's necessary. But in private, you whisper different things. You're made of stars and blood, you tell her. You're the reason I'm still here. You're not a curse or a burden or a coin to be traded in marriage. You are mine, and I am yours. Scholars today still argue about the emotional lives of medieval women. Were they numb to loss, hardened by routine survival, or did they carry grief and hope in their bones like we do now? The truth is, you carry both, every single day. You've started putting your daughter in a sling and taking longer walks, beyond the fields into the edge of the woods. You name the trees aloud for her, point out bird calls, run her fingers through moss. It's as much for you as it is for her. The world feels new again when you show it to someone who's never seen it before. She laughs at the sky. You laugh with her. One evening you sit on the stoop and hold her against your chest. The wind is warm. The fire inside crackles softly. Her breath is steady. The stars are out just barely. And for the first time in a long while you feel still. Not waiting, not bracing, just being. And it's enough. Your daughter takes her first steps on a rain-soaked morning when the sky hangs low and the ground is slick with mud. She stands, wobbly, uncertain, clutching the leg of the table with one hand and your skirt with the other. Her eyes are wide, mouth open, as if the possibility of standing alone is too wondrous to believe. Then, like a bird startled into flight, she lets go. One step, then two, then a spectacular fall straight into your lap. You laugh so hard you nearly cry. She laughs too, face crumpling into joy. It's clumsy, miraculous, the most human thing you've ever seen. There's no one else in the room, but it doesn't matter. You'll remember this forever. The floor is muddy, the soup's gone cold, your hair's unbraided and sticking to your face. But she walked. Outside, the village is heavy with summer. The smell of sweat and soil fills the air. Babies are everywhere, strapped to backs, carried in slings, playing in dirt. You see mothers younger than you now, their bellies round, eyes wide, hands trembling. You know that look. It's the same one you wore not so long ago. A mixture of awe and fear, hope and nausea. One girl stops you near the well, hand resting on her belly. Does it get easier? She asks. You don't lie. It changes, you say. You get stronger. Or you break and stitch yourself back together. She nods, not quite satisfied, but grateful for honesty. You want to tell her everything. How the pain fades, but the memory stays. How you never truly forget the moment the baby slipped free, or the silence before the first cry. How your own body becomes a stranger, then a friend again. How you'll cry over a cracked nipple and sing lullabies with a voice you didn't know you had. How you'll wake up in a cold sweat because you dreamed they stopped breathing. And how you'll still smile when they laugh. But she's not ready for all that. So you smile instead and say, "You'll be all right." Maybe it's a lie, but maybe not. You return home to find your daughter pulling every clean cloth from the basket. She's babbling to herself, constructing a tower of chaos. You sit beside her on the floor and let her hand you rags like bricks. The two of you build something crooked, lopsided, but sturdy in its own way, like both of you. Later that evening, your husband enters with dust on his face and calluses on his palms. He kisses your daughter first, gently, then you, just as gently. You haven't spoken much in weeks, not about anything real, but the look in his eyes lingers longer than usual. He sees you, you think. The real you, not the bleeding woman, not the recovering wife. Just you. And maybe that's enough. Your mother joins you for supper. She watches the baby eat with her fists, mashing everything into her mouth like it's the first time food has existed. She laughs. She's bold, she says, like you were. You look at your hands, worn and dry. You don't feel bold. You feel tired, strong, grateful, afraid, hopeful, all tangled together. She's made of more than just me, you say. Your mother nods. But she came through you. That matters. In the quiet after the meal, you sit by the hearth, your daughter asleep on your chest. The world narrows to the rhythm of her breath. You watch the fire flicker, the light painting golden lines across the floor, and for the first time, you think about what's next. You might have another. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But the thought doesn't fill you with panic this time. It just sits there, waiting, like a seed. You understand now why the old women speak of motherhood not as a moment, but as a transformation. It's not one birth, it's dozens. You birth yourself over and over. Every time she cries, every time she walks, every time she nearly falls and you don't catch her, you're born again. The early days are fading now. The pain has dulled. The blood is a memory. The sleepless nights still visit, but not like ghosts anymore. More like old friends, worn and familiar. You think about the others, those who didn't make it. You honour them in quiet ways. A candle lit without comment, a small flower pressed into the earth beside the well, a lullaby sung to no one. You're one of the lucky ones. You know that. That doesn't make what you went through easier. It just makes it sacred. There's a quirky old tale from a village far north. Something about how the souls of mothers glow just under the skin, visible only at dusk. They said if you watched closely, you could see the faint flicker of light just above a woman's heart, like a firefly resting beneath the flesh. You used to think it was nonsense. Now you wonder. Because sometimes, when you hold your daughter in the soft light between day and night, when the world feels small and safe and real, you feel it. That flicker, that glow, not magic, just proof that you lived. And so did she. So here you are, the fire low, the sky dark, your child warm against your chest. You breathe deep. Not because anything is finished, nothing ever really finishes, but because for now, the worst of it is behind you. You bled, you healed, you woke in the dark and whispered prayers to saints you didn't trust and gods you didn't name. You stood on the threshold of death and came back holding life in your arms. That life is louder now, it laughs, it throws bread at chickens, it toddles dangerously near the edge of the hearth. You've traded labour cries for skinned knees, sleepless nights for teething whimpers, that long ache of recovery for the steady hum of growing up. But inside you, yes, you, something remains. A record carved deep into the body, a song that starts low in the bones and echoes every time your child reaches for you. What happened to pregnant women in the Dark Ages? The short answer, everything. Pain, power, praise, punishment. Birth was a miracle, but also a minefield. A holy act wrapped in fear and superstition. Some women didn't survive. Some did, and kept surviving, one child after the next, with a strength no one wrote down in books. No clean hospital rooms, no medicine beyond bitter roots and whispered charms. Just blood, fire, breath, and the stubbornness to keep going. And you made it. You walked through it all with your feet bare and your fists clenched. Maybe you were scared. Maybe you were scarred. But you were never alone. Now your daughter dreams, the village sleeps, the wind hushes the eaves, and you're still awake, watching, waiting, knowing that tomorrow brings more dirt, more laughter, more small, beautiful chaos. But tonight, just tonight, you rest. You wrap your arms around the little thing you carried through fire, and you let the quiet hold you both.